Deep in the forest, there's a small house, and in the lobby, a girl with long, pure white hair is waiting for you. Finally, you've arrived. I am the administrator, the White Crane Sword Master Sang-hyun. Forget about that old man. She's a young girl, but not naive. Seeing you standing still, the White Crane Sword Master wonders if something is wrong. Sang-hyun is just excited to meet a friend from online. She gestures for you to sit down and chat to ease the fatigue. As soon as you sit down, Sang-gyong feels incredibly refreshed. The natural breeze is even better than air conditioning. Now you understand why she chose to sit in the middle of the porch, instead of going inside. The White Crane Sword Master laughs. She has been observing you from here since Sang-hyun faced off against Big Sun H on the 9th floor. Sang-hyun feels puzzled as she puts her skills on the line for a challenge. A newbie like you, but the White Crane Sword Master doesn't see it that way. Even though Big Sun H hasn't reached the level of Radiant Sword Chi, he is still a powerful swordsman in the martial world. Although he lost some strength when entering the tower, defeating a challenger like Big Sun H is an incredible achievement. The White Crane Sword Master knows this well. It's because she has signed a contract with Big Sun H. Sang-hyun sweats. If that's the case, she might harbor resentment towards you. The White Crane Sword Master seems to see through your thoughts and says, Sang-gyong, you don't need to be so cautious. I've signed contracts with many challengers, but I've never invited anyone to my home like this. Except for you. She might have imagined it, so she decides to speak frankly. The White Crane Sword Master looks at you seriously and says, please sign a supplementary contract with me. Sang-hyun isn't surprised. He's only concerned about what he would gain from her if he agrees. The White Crane Sword Master will make him her disciple, a lifelong administrator. Only one disciple can be accepted inside the tower, and that person will be called the disciple of the administrator, meaning he has signed a special contract. At the same time, Sung-hyun can acquire all the skills of that administrator. Sung-hyun realizes why the master-disciple contract is so important. But the Blood King hasn't even explained this to him, even though he has been her disciple for a long time. She must have been a bit forgetful lately, but the supplementary contract can be cancelled at any time. He wonders why the White Crane Sword Master is entrusting a lifelong contract to him when this is very disadvantageous for her. The White Crane Sword Master admits it's similar to the Blood King. They chose him to fulfill their ultimate desire. They need the sharpest sword, a sword that will never rust or break, and you have the potential to become that sharpest sword. Sang-hyun only focuses on the ultimate desires both administrators mentioned and asks her what they are. They are regrets from the past and from their memories. At the same time, it's also a privilege granted to the administrator by the tower, just like the trial tower. It's a challenge that can only be given to challengers who have signed contracts with the administrator, and when it becomes a reality, the administrator will receive a reward. If the ultimate desire of the White Crane Sword Master comes true, Sung-hyun might change the past. What may you ask in surprise to confirm? How can you trust a woman's words right away? The higher you climb the tower, the more you will understand. You'll find out then whether I'm telling the truth or not. The White Crane Sword Master replies. Sang-hyun feels it makes sense. In real life, it might be hard to believe, but with this tower, that possibility is very likely. However, he still has doubts. How high does he have to climb to help her desire come true? The White Crane Sword Master scratches her ear and says, that's simple, it's the highest floor of this trial tower. Sang-hyun was sweating at the highest level and they said it was easy. In the end, he agreed to make a pact with the White Crane Sword Master, celebrating that wise decision. You won't regret it, but Sang-hyun isn't even sure if this is a wise decision. But anyway, he had already guessed that he would have to climb to the highest floor of the tower to fulfill the aspirations of an administrator after becoming a true disciple of the White Crane Sword Master. The effectiveness of authority and skills from the Murim dimension would increase by 10%, plus a bit more mana. Now he was different. Sang-hyun had become the disciple of 2 administrators, and he gained some extra points. Sang-hyun couldn't wait for the day he would become stronger above all. He also received a special gift from the White Crane Sword Master, but did you hear anything from her about the person looking for you? The White Crane Sword Master curiously asked, and Sang-hyun didn't know anything either. Is there another beautiful girl looking for him? The White Crane Sword Master shook her head. She didn't know what the Blood King was thinking, but it seemed she completely trusted him. The White Crane Sword Master felt the same way, but she still had to tell him one thing. It would cost a few question tickets. Sang-hyun nodded. After all, he wasn't using the question tickets and had a bunch lying around. Immediately, the system deducted all of his question tickets. Sung-hyun was surprised, not knowing how important this information was to cost so many tickets. The White Crane Sword Master said that in the Murim dimension. There is a powerful organization called the Murim Alliance. Big Sun Hak, the one he defeated on the 9th floor, is their ancestor. Therefore, someone in the Murim dimension is looking for him. Sang-hyun felt that this person must be seeking him for revenge. For their ancestor, right? The White Crane Swordmaster said the Murim alliance was in chaos due to the war over the ancestor's position, and the one wanting to kill him is the sword dragon from the Namgong clan Lam Thin sword dragon Namgong Hyu. He is someone who has built a reputation among martial arts masters who have lived in the Murim dimension for centuries and is a genius. He uses the excuse of revenge to find Sang-hyun. But the deeper reason is that he is curious about the one who killed the ancestor. The White Crane Swordmaster doesn't know when Namgong Hyu will arrive or if he has already come. But if he encounters him, he should be mentally prepared because he might lose his life. After hearing this, Sang-hyun was transported back to the waiting room. In short, there is a murderous maniac in Murim, who is looking for him even though they invaded his floor first. It's really confusing. Sang-hyun finally had enough money to buy the artifact known as the Divine Wings. After that, he bought the stones to return. Now he only knew his immediate goal was to become stronger quickly before encountering that Namgong Hyu. After returning to Earth, the first thing Sung-hyun picked up was the new iPhone 15 Pro Max, which had hundreds of missed calls from Lee Hae-yeon. She was urgently requesting him to come to the Hunter Association immediately. Sang-hyun felt something urgent was happening, so he used the artifact to fly at lightning speed to the association. At that moment, the Hunter Association was filled with countless hunters being mobilized. Just then, a gigantic fly flew by. After landing, it turned out to be Sang-jeon, who landed in a cool manner, leaving everyone stunned. He said sorry and then skipped away. Inside, Lee Hae-yeon and another staff member were waiting for him. Sang-hyun, always the main topic, asked why she called him so urgently. Lee Hae-yeon recounted that something big had happened in Japan. She was afraid he would go there alone, which is why she called him here. They needed to discuss further, but the situation was too dire, and the issue on the screen was a video recorded by Japanese hunters and sent to them. The location was Shizuku in Tokyo, where a massive wave emanated from a portal, and the Japanese Hunter Association had sent a team of 7 A-rank hunters to the scene. A humanoid figure emerged from the portal. The portal and took down 6 A-rank hunters in just a few seconds. Currently, everyone believes he is a challenger from another world who has come to invade their Earth dimension. Sang-hyun felt a strange coincidence after he heard the news from the White Crane Swordmaster that all the hunters had left there. Because this is a very complicated matter, most countries try to protect their hunters so they don't allow anyone to assist Japan. Korea is the same. No one was sent to help at all. In the end, there was a video of the only survivor on the screen showing an insane murderer with a cold voice. Lam Thin Sword Long Nam Gong Hyuk has come to take revenge for Big Son H. Tell them that the name Nam Gong Hyuk is exactly the one looking for Sun-jeon. He didn't expect to face him so soon. Suddenly, Lee Hae-yeon pulled his sleeve and asked Han why he looked so tense. You don't have to go. It's been a while since we last met. How about we grab something to eat first? Lee Hae-yeon hoped he wouldn't go there. But Sang-jeon told them to respond to Japan's request that he would go to Shinjuku. Lee Hae-yeon froze, suddenly irritated, asking him why he kept doing such reckless things. You should think about how others feel, too. Thanks for worrying about me, Sang-jeon said. I have to go because he's looking for me. Namgong Hyuk had always wondered why no one could understand the sound of the sword. During a training match, he ruthlessly injured his subordinates. At the age of 13, his sword energy surpassed even mine when I was young. His father, the Sword Saint, only advised him one thing: martial arts should not be used to harm others. It is a part of a transcendent realm. He cannot hurt others without reason. Namgong Hyuk did not respond. He just climbed the tower day by day, reaching the 20th floor. While others rejoiced for him, Namgong Hyuk felt no satisfaction. His ambition could not be fulfilled merely by climbing the tower, and eventually he sought to obtain tickets to invade other realms. From there, he walked his path. Satisfying his ambition to destroy his humanity was the only thing that made him feel happy, but the longer it took, the less satisfied he became with killing those punks. It was pitiful that wandering the martial world to kill was not allowed. Upon hearing that Sang-hyun had taken down the elder of the Murim Alliance, he felt that he could find it interesting. At least he could last longer than the others. At the same time, Sang-hyun had arrived in Japan and was received in the most extravagant manner, with someone inviting him into the waiting room. Inside were Chon Se-ok and Seong-hun. After their collaboration on the 10th floor, they finally reunited. Sang-hyun heard from the association that the two were also here. But unexpectedly, they were participating, and it seemed that these were all the people responding to Japan's support request. Seong-hun heard there was another person from America as well, but they would have to wait longer. Sang-hoon felt that the three of them could match the S-rank hunters, but that Nam Gong-hyuk was a monster yet to be determined. And he could even take down all three of them. He hoped the person from America was stronger than them. Just then, the door opened, and Sang-hoon looked over surprised to see Catherine. Catherine didn't want to meet him this way. "I just wanted to see you on a more normal day. Our first meeting wasn't exactly a normal encounter, so we don't need to be like this," he coldly replied, making Catherine annoyed. "Is this a couple's quarrel?" Seong-hun remarked, and Sang-hyun immediately denied it, saying, "That could never happen. I'm all about the path of righteousness." The president of the Japan Hunter Association, Arachika, entered, introducing and welcoming them. Sang-hyun thought she was just an ordinary staff member, but it turned out she held the highest position. It was expected that there would be no further support for Japan. The situation was actually more serious than she thought, so they might be adjusting the dispatch of hunters to assist. John Seok was surprised that only 4 countries approved worldwide. This left Ari feeling so helpless that she trembled, bowing 90 degrees to thank the 4 of them for coming to help. "While the whole world turns its back on them, please lift your head. President, now is not the time to bow." Catherine felt that Sang-yu's words showed that even though he appeared cold on the outside, he was very warm inside. "Instead of bowing your head, you should increase our reward." His next words left everyone stunned. "That's right, you might seem cold and unapproachable, but once the reward is doubled, you'll become Japan's best buddy. Sang-hyun didn't come here to be a saint, or a hero for that matter, but to get the reward along with the growth that comes from taking down Nam Gong-hyuk. Yeah, okay, I'm already feeling emotional." The chairman said Nam Gong-hyuk is indeed a rare and unusual monster, so she decided to double the reward for them. After all, the situation isn't entirely hopeless, because they have a chance to win. That's Catherine's ability. She can turn the tide. She possesses the skill Destruction Fire. If a stronger opponent touches the flame, it will activate, reducing all their stats by 10, and a random skill will be sealed. They might win with Destruction Fire, but that's only if he touches this flame. In other words, they need to create a situation where Catherine can activate Destruction Fire. At that moment, a helicopter carrying an S-rank hunter from China Bai Mu arrived to assist but ran into Nam Gong-hyuk. It seems both sides are having a deep conversation, but no one can hear it except the readers. "You are Han San-jeon, right?" Nam Gong-hyuk spoke up. Bai Mu smirked, introducing himself, his hometown, and gender. He would show him what a festival feels like when he touches someone from another dimension. Nam Gong-hyuk sighed, confused as to why these A-rank guys kept rushing at him instead of Sang-jeon. Before he could finish his sentence, Bai Mu charged in and threw a punch. Unexpectedly, Nam Gong-hyuk muttered a martial arts term. How interesting, his eggplant smile made Bai Mu falter, leading to a physical tussle between the two sides. At this moment, the helicopter with 4 people also arrived. John, the CEO, cursed as Bai Mu dared to attack alone. Otherwise, they would have formed a superhero team. Sang-hyun suddenly asked Catherine if she could land safely when they jumped down from here, because he had a great idea about that. Catherine has a damage immunity skill when falling with him, so that should be enough. If this works out, they could deal a ton of damage to him in just 1 hit. That's when Catherine activates Destruction Fire. The battle plan is set. Now they just need to act. Sang-hyun pulled Catherine along and activated his angel wings, diving down. John Seok clicked his tongue, seeing him still doing whatever he wanted, but that's what makes it interesting. The 2 of them jumped down after Sang-hyun took off. Do you even have a brain? In this situation, who just flies off without an explanation like that? Catherine was frustrated, but teared up as he didn't even bother to listen to her. Sang-hyun was only focused on the fact that Bai Mu was drawing Nam Gong-hyuk's attention. And this is their opportunity. Now the 2 of them have to split up. Sang-hyun will go ahead while Bai Mu was gritting his teeth, enduring as Nam Gong-hyuk had the upper hand. He smashed his shield with a contemptuous attitude, saying he couldn't even bring a weapon into his martial arts. What kind of martial arts is this? Next came the Dragon Strike 18 move from Nam Gong-hyuk. Bai Mu barely had time to yawn when he noticed a huge red fly coming towards him. That was Sang-jeon's counterattack in a move that descended from the sky, ambushing Nam Gong, causing him to fall and bleed, his palms swollen like his own brain, and the one responsible for this was none other than Sang-hyun, who brushed off his clothes and sighed. "I never want to try that thrill-seeking game of falling from the sky again. Who are you?" Nam Gong-hyuk gritted his teeth in frustration after being sneak-attacked with a painful blow. Seeing Sang-hyun smirk, he thought, "You're the one I've been searching for all this time." Sang-hun activated his blood rage before the battle to heal his injuries while he unleashed his sword energy. Nam Gong-hyuk suddenly trembled with rage. He had always sought his identity, but was disappointed to see that he could only use fake sword energy. He slammed his fists together hard enough to break the blood clot. His face scrunched up like a monkey's butt, saying, "I'm really furious right now." "Oh, really?" Sung-hyun immediately charged in, taking advantage of the moment when he wasn't armed. Nam-gong raised his hand to summon his sword, catching Sung-hyun off guard. Both sides rushed into a brawl, and his counterattack was shattered in just one blow. Luckily, Sang-hyun didn't dive headfirst into that. Otherwise, it would have been the end of his life. Activating Blood Rage to heal, he thought the aerial attack from earlier had already dealt him a lot of damage. Even now, he couldn't use the properties of his counter shield anymore. It turned out that was the true sword energy that the elders often mentioned. Nam-gong felt even more irritated as he recovered. Magic from the tower, but Sang-hyun didn't care. He just needed to win. Sang-hyun slashed with a beam of sword energy. Nam-gong stood still, waiting for the cut to come, then swung his hand to slice it in two. Just then, John Seok and Seung-hoon rushed out, but before they could get close, he had already retreated 3 meters to dodge the attack. But unfortunately, he ran right into Catherine, who had been waiting here since the afternoon. She activated her fire destruction spell, and immediately a huge explosion proved that the spell hit him. John pointed up and said, "He's up there." Nam-gong stood on the power pole, annoyed, saying, "You bugs dare to ruin my fun." He prepared to launch a strike, guided by the instincts of a hunter. Tell them that if they don't get out of the way now, they'll be meeting their ancestors. So all three scattered, running as far away as possible. A beam of light descended like an atomic bomb, taking them back a bit. The White Crane Swordmaster had taught Sang-hyun a family method. It was about transferring pure mana. However, it wasn't simple because it still maintained the feeling of connection even after their hands parted. Sang-hyun felt that the first thing was truly transferring mana, and the second was the feeling as if she was inside him. The White Crane Swordmaster smiled. "Good, now you can apply it to your sword, but try it only after leaving this place. Because here you can't be put at a disadvantage due to the administrator's intervention, and now was the time for him to try using it and catch Nam-gong off guard." Sang-hyun, being the first from Earth to successfully fuse human and sword, neutralized his attack. He felt the sword energy perfectly in his hand and turned to check on the situation of the three. At that moment, Sang-hyun used an attack of the same level to nullify Nam-gong's slash. Catherine felt that both of these people were monsters. "Ha ha ha!" Nam-gong's laughter echoed, surprising everyone. He laughed as if he had just found a new favorite toy. "That's how you should react? I thought I would be disappointed." As a child, he realized that the more effort he put into building a sandcastle, the more joy he felt when destroying it. In contrast, Sung-hyun felt that Nam-gong was not only strong, but also mentally unstable. He had been knocked back by that lunatic. Although he didn't want to show off, Sang-hyun could only tell the three of them to step back for safety in case another situation like earlier occurred. Otherwise, he would lose more mana to protect them. It sounded a bit heartbreaking, but Seung-hoon agreed. Unexpectedly, after the challenge on the 10th floor, he once again couldn't do anything to help Sang-hyun. "But when we have the chance, we will carry out the fire plan carefully," Seung-hoon said before leaving. Now, only Sung-hyun and Nam-gong remained, clashing in the air with such force that the houses and vehicles around them were destroyed. Their speed was so fast that it was hard to see them move. They were like two streaks of light in the gloomy sky, punctuated by a few explosive bursts. Now, John Seok understood why he told them to fall back. Even standing this far away, the wind knocked Catherine's hat off. She felt that Sung-hyun was on par with Nam-gong, but Seung-hoon sensed he was at a disadvantage, and if this dragged on, he might die. Indeed, Sung-hyun thought he could match him if he leveled up his sword energy, but now he was being overwhelmed. The White Crane Swordmaster assessed Nam-gong's swordsmanship as superior. In rank a while, he was only rank C. If they didn't talk about swordsmanship, he was still a true monster, far too strong compared to him. In the end, Sang-hyun had collapsed. He mockingly said, "Is that all you've got?" He had used too many points for recovery, so if he used more stamina points, his fighting ability would be affected at this critical moment. Catherine threw him a peach wine bottle to recover his stamina. Sang-hoon caught it, opened the cap, and was about to pour it into his mouth when Nam-gong kicked him away and snatched the bottle. "This stuff is good handed over, heh, you dirty dog." John Seok couldn't help but curse. While Sang-hyun was battered, the one who regained a bit of stamina was him, Nam-gong, who always had a glimmer of hope for humanity. "You too, Han." Sang-hyun thoughts like, "I can do this. Just give it your all until the last minute and you might win, you might survive." Thoughts like that made Nam-gong laugh, shaking with delight as he tore those thoughts apart. Piece by piece, he relished the moment when Sang-hyun's expression shifted from optimism to despair, which was what entertained him. Nam-gong charged in frantically, attacking Sang-hyun. But he was not satisfied. He didn't like that his eyes were still filled with hope. He gritted his teeth in anger and landed a powerful punch that sent Sangyeon rolling on the ground. His body trembled, unable to stand firm. More pathetic than the first time climbing the tower, Nam Gong approached with an angry face. He couldn't understand why he still held that gaze. Even if he had no strength left to move, if that was the case, he would blind Sang-hyun. Nam Gong wanted to see him fall into despair as Sang-hyun cried out in pain. His eyes had turned a deep red. His recovery ability had used up stamina points, but he had reached his limit. If he concentrated all his strength, he could throw one more blow, but right now he couldn't see anything. There was no way to land an accurate hit. What should he do now? Just then, 3 people rushed toward Sangyeon. But he knew that if they came, they would only be sacrificing themselves for him. "Don't come here!" he shouted inadvertently, making Nam Gong realize something. His eyes flashed with bloodlust. His teammates were the reason he still held that gaze. Catherine launched a fire attack, but he had been behind her for who knows how long. He slashed down her spine. Seung-eun charged up immediately, but couldn't even touch a hair on him. Not only that, he was kicked hard in the head. Causing his face to slam into the ground, Sang-hyun could only hear the sounds and screams of his teammates, but that was even more painful. Nam Gong grabbed Catherine's hair and pulled her in front of Sang-hyun. He pressed the blade against her throat to threaten him. "You can smell your friend cooking slowly." "Ha ha! Stop it, you perverted bastard!" Sang-hyun shouted helplessly. This reaction excited Nam Gong. This was the expression he wanted to see from him. The more pain, the more pleasure he felt. Taking advantage of his laughter, Joseph rushed in and froze his arm, then pulled Catherine away. Now they needed emergency treatment first. Nam Gong gritted his teeth in frustration as the game was interrupted midway. He shattered the ice and charged at them like a beast. He buried Catherine in a ball of energy and threw her as far as he could. Then he would hide again, hiding and chanting a spell, but Nam Gong had caught his head. Striking directly at the buried vehicle, Seung-hyun lay on the ground, unable to get up. He couldn't even see anything and blamed himself for still being as weak as he was 7 years ago. Unable to protect anyone, the rats scurried out in droves. Even the sewer rats could feel it. This battle was a disaster, and the only attack left for him was Seung-hyun's gamble. He used all the souls he possessed to recover his strength. Meanwhile, Nam Gong had just severed one of Seung-hyun's arms, stopping immediately as the perverted martial artist Sanjio said no. Nam Gong replied that it was the only way to do it. That was how he could enjoy the feeling of pleasure at that moment. Baimok unleashed a devastating punch aimed straight at his stomach. Thanks to the fire destruction sword energy, his fire sword had been sealed for 10 minutes. "I am the hero of China, Baimok." "I'm still alive, you filthy trash," Baimok shouted, but he arrived a bit late. He came and went as quickly as the wind, using Catherine's fire to carry her away before Nam Gong could catch both of them. Nam Gong gritted his teeth, realizing he should have known better. He had dealt with them before entering the battle with Sangyeon, leaving only one way to avoid being interrupted. He summoned a fierce battle with 10 giant swords falling from the sky. Surrounding the two, creating a battlefield established within a 30-meter radius, everyone outside of Seung-hyun and him could not enter. Although Nam Gong's sword energy was sealed, he could still use his battle energy while Sang-hyun was just a blind man, so how could he avoid it? Sang-hyun tilted his head to dodge his punch. He didn't even know when he had gathered the spiritual eyes that could see through attacks outside of his line of sight. He once thought it was just that, but now it included the wall built around this 30-meter area. He could see every stone clearly. After losing his eyes, Sang-hyun could see even more. It turned out he had never used the spiritual eyes correctly before. Now Sang-hyun seemed to have opened a third eye, also known as the true spiritual eye, which could only be activated in life and death battles where his life depended on his fighting senses, his 6th sense. Something Sang-hyun had completely forgotten after regaining it evolved and helped clarify his senses even more, even after being beaten and battered. His blood surged to the new level and Nam Gong jumped back defensively. He felt that now Sangyeon could fight him on equal terms as he saw Sang-hyun charge forward. For the first time, Nam Gong felt hesitant. He didn't understand why suddenly his martial arts had improved and his sword was sharper. Sang-hyun stepped into the shadows, activating the secret technique, increasing his movement speed and accumulating enough for 7 uses of the skill gliding like the wind, plus the 10th accumulation of the combat sword type. But he still felt the two were not on the same level. The one in danger was still him, and his mana was about to run out. In 10 minutes, he would unlock the skill, and by then he had to end the battle. While the fire destruction was still effective, the only thing that could turn the tide in a fight. Close combat was the element of surprise. Sang-hun stretched out, throwing the sword towards Nam-gong, which was indeed a bit surprising, but he could dodge it. "You made a foolish choice, you idiot." While he was unarmed, Nam-gong threw a punch, and Sung-yun fell back to avoid it at the same time. Summoning the blood sword newly inscribed into his soul, a sword lunged from Sanjion's body. Nam-gong, caught off guard, was pierced through the stomach. Fresh blood sprayed out. Looking fresh, the sword even pierced his dantian, so he had to quickly retreat to recover completely. Just then, the fire destruction wore off. The fierce battle could no longer be sustained. Nam-gong pulled the sword out of his body. They had played too much already. "Next time I will end this battle." He opened a door. Bai Mok guessed he was trying to return to the martial arts dimension. In that moment, everyone felt it. If we don't take him down here, then the Earth will face unimaginable consequences, and we can't let him escape. 4 of us rushed towards him as he was about to step out the door. Hearing the words escape made him extremely irritated. The fire sword Nam-gong dealt them a blow just as strong for daring to say he was running away, and the 4 of them couldn't avoid it as they charged forward. A shockwave hit so hard that the surrounding skyscrapers collapsed, but the 4 of them remained unharmed because Sung-hyun had arrived just in time, although his counter-shield was neutralized. As a result, his left arm was burned away. Catherine couldn't help but feel worried, but Sang-hyun didn't want to let Nam-gong go. He looked at him with a gaze full of killing intent, saying, "From the start, I could have finished you off in one blow. Did you really expect this outcome?" Sang-hyun was furious, but couldn't retaliate because he was in a weaker position before leaving. Nam-gong didn't forget to say, "See you again, gentlemen. Revenge is never too late," before Sanjeon also collapsed on the other side. Nam-gong returned, unable to hold on any longer, and the servants hurried to call for the doctor. All Nam-gong could remember was Sanjeon's face. He was determined to make him suffer worse than death. At the Tokyo hospital, Sanjeon finally woke up after several hours of unconsciousness, with the association president waiting by his bedside. She felt very regretful when she saw his severe injuries. "I don't know how to express this." With his sacrifice activating the blood weakness skill, Sung-hyun's arm regrew in the blink of an eye, leaving the president in shock. "I'm still okay," Sang-hyun said while removing the bandages showcasing his six-pack. Then he went to find the others. First was Catherine, who unfortunately was just in time to bandage her back wound. So everything that shouldn't be seen Sang-hyun had already seen. Meanwhile, John Seok was struggling to crawl while cursing, but when he saw Sanjeon, his face lit up, though it bore the imprint of Catherine's 5 fingers. It seemed she was still doing well, so there was nothing to worry about. Only Seung-hun was someone he hadn't met yet. Hearing him mention him made his face droop because Seung-hun had lost his right arm. At this moment, a man was standing on the rooftop enjoying the breeze with one hand. He praised Sang-hyun once again for his incredible recovery ability, while Seung-hun's right hand was beyond saving. Sang-hun felt guilty for not being strong enough to defeat Nam-gong. Seung-hun used his prosthetic arm to comfort him. At least he could still hold a weapon. Sang-hun climbed to the top of the tower just to become stronger. It seemed he had been manipulated, causing his vision to narrow. Seung-hun saw that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but he was sure that this would help him become even stronger. The strong must help the weak. That was Seung-hun's life philosophy. Sang-hyun had also learned a lot from this decisive battle. He remembered something important that he had forgotten for a long time. Seung-hun felt relieved because a strong person like him wasn't a wicked madman, even though he couldn't see Sang-hyun's thoughts. During their first meeting at the tower, Seung-hun took off his mask to smoke and casually offered Sang-hyun a cigarette. He said no to alcohol, but his face was surprised. When he saw what was behind Seung-hun's mask, he stammered, "Sang-hun!" Seung-hun forgot to introduce himself properly, saying, "Let's wait until tomorrow." In the following days, they took a commemorative photo of the event. Sang-hun answered interview questions before saying goodbye and even gave Catherine a small gift when he put on the repaired cloak. He immediately noticed the difference in the hem, proving it had been upgraded a bit during the equipment refurbishment, all in top condition thanks to him preventing a major disaster. So services like this weren't too surprising. The past 3 days had indeed been chaotic, and Sung-hyun really didn't want to become famous this way. As soon as he entered the top ranks, he saw videos of the battle flooding the internet. It turned out to be from the recording of the Japanese Hunter Association's helicopter, with some comments mentioning the title Sword Demon that Seung-hun had told him about. But Sung-hun couldn't believe he was the Thunder Emperor, dubbed the strongest hero in the ranks. He mentioned the title of the legendary hero that Seung-hun talked about, but Sung-hun couldn't believe that he was the so-called strongest hero among them. The 30 S-rank hunters from Korea have shattered the gates that other S-rank hunters couldn't even come close to, so calling him a hero isn't wrong at all. If anything happens, Seong-hoon advised him to contact him. He could even consider it a recruitment, as Sung-yun could reach out to him for any reason without any issue. At this moment, the time on Earth has ended, and Sung-hyun returns to the training tower perhaps one day. He will become stronger to live up to the nickname Shadow Blade. After returning to the waiting room, Sung-hyun fell into thought after the battle with Nam Gong-hyu. He realized he lacked endurance. Blood Drain is one of the strongest healing skills he currently possesses, but it doesn't activate if his endurance isn't sufficient, so it's time. Sang-gyeong needs another endurance recovery skill. After browsing Shopee for a while, he still couldn't find any skills. For him, the best way to solve this problem is to buy all the available endurance recovery skills. Shopping really is the best feeling, but it also hurts a bit. After purchasing a series of skills, Sang-gyeong still had a little bit of points left, so he opened the skill combination to merge those with similar effects. First, there's the skill to absorb sunlight, and moonlight creating photosynthesis, which increases recovery by 200% when exposed to sunlight or moonlight. And the user can absorb mana through light. Now he will mix Blood Call into photosynthesis to create Blood Pact, allowing the user to drain HP, endurance, and mana from the blood of the creatures they kill. But for Sung-hyun, this skill isn't very effective. The skill level doesn't increase, and he loses the advantages of photosynthesis. The best solution is to buy more of the Blood Call skill. Then combine it with Blood Pact to see what it produces. After a while of spinning the lottery, the B-level Blood Truth Seeker is created, allowing the user to drain vitality, stamina, and mana from the blood of creatures and gain powerful blood control. Additionally, the user's blood will gradually recover automatically. It sounds a bit confusing, so Sang-gyeong decided to practice right away. He cut his hand and commanded the drops of blood. To his surprise, they obeyed and could take any shape he desired, even squeezing out blood. Even though he directly cut into his flesh, he still needed to slice skin and muscle if he wanted to quickly use a large amount of blood. This seems like it will be a powerful skill. Sang-gyeong felt very satisfied since there was still time to rest, so he decided to upgrade the Eye of Truth, combining it with another skill to create the Fire Dragon Eye. This helps him see things that were previously invisible, as well as view the information of objects and the lies of others. Sung-hyun used the Fire Dragon Eye and looked at himself in the mirror. The second-hand tailcoat of the vampire count and the worn-out shoes from walking since the beginning of the story were information he had never seen before. Finally, there's the Celestial Blood Demon's Sword. Upon reaching the realm of the Blood Sword, the maximum attack will unlock a special move. Remembering the move that Nam Gong used to destroy the Shizuku region, only those who have reached that level can awaken the true power of the Celestial Blood Demon's Sword. He initially thought it was just a fine sword. He didn't expect it to contain such powerful abilities, and once he has a good item, he must use it right away. Sang-hyun directly entered the 11th floor with the theme of mental purification. This challenge lasts for 7 days with the condition of completing the 7th trial in the remaining time. Of course, if he fails, he will just have to go meet his ancestors. As soon as Sang-hyun arrived, someone welcomed him to the purification temple. From now on, he will have to undergo trials set by the gods to purify himself. These trials will continue until he dies, even if he is just an explorer. But if he dares to accept these divine trials, he will have to face the consequences. A young forest man stood on one leg smirking as Sung-hyun asked about how to pass the first trial, which only made the guy look down on him even more. Because the rules of the trials in the arena belong to the 7 supreme gods, he didn't understand how a foolish explorer like you could make it here. But I have to explain, he said. The trial has only one simple requirement to prove your body, faith, and mind. The easiest is the body. But he had to explain that the trial had just one simple requirement to prove his body, faith, and mind, with the easiest being the body. It's harder when the mind is also the toughest trial. The method of testing is basically that in each room, there will be a high-ranking bishop waiting. Sung-hyun, you just need to keep moving on to the next room, by killing or persuading that person. So I just need to get past that guy, no matter what method I use. Sang-hyun asked again, but he didn't say anything more. He directly stepped into the first trial, rushing to engage in a fistfight with Sang-hyun. He guessed that this guy must be at the level of someone who has received the title of pioneer. He applied pressure, forcing out a drop of blood, then shot it towards the black-skinned guy like a bullet. The blood bullet hit him right between the eyes, leaving him unable to comprehend what just happened, and he fell dead on the spot. Sang-hyun also felt that this skill was indeed insane. Luckily, it fell into his hands. He then absorbed his soul, Bishop Johann. The other administrators found it interesting. They decided to keep an eye on him. Looking at their nicknames, he guessed they were just curious because this trial involved the gods. Sang-hun picked up an item that fell from Johan. He activated his dragon eye to see more details. It was a mirror containing the divine power of the high-ranking bishop, specifically Johan's. It could be used to create a divine shield just once. However, hidden behind it was the ability to guide the user to prove their destiny. Hearing this, Sang-hyun couldn't grasp its implications. So he decided to put it in his bag and move on, hoping for more opportunities to prove his body since he wasn't good at persuading others. He opened the next door. Sang-hyun heard a mocking voice. "An outsider we don't even know the name of, yet you made it here so quickly. Johan must be out of time now." A female monk was sitting in a chair in the middle of the room. She was the bishop of the second trial. She introduced herself as Ren and then started by throwing the chair from under her butt unexpectedly towards him. Sang-hyun caught the chair. Such a violent opening showed that this was a trial to prove the body. Ren charged forward with 2 inflated airbags precisely swinging a sword. He recognized it as sword energy, but it felt like he had used it before. Sang-hyun used thunder sword energy to slash a crescent arc towards Ren, severely injuring her. But what she was concerned about was the aura he used, which basically a normal challenger couldn't master. Ren was quite surprised because that was the holy power granted by God to the pastors. She just didn't expect him to have no holy power at all. Yet he could control such top-tier sword energy. Then Ren healed her wounds in an instant. Her damage was indeed lethal and accompanied by some annoying holy power. From what he heard from the first priest, there was no need to kill the bishop to pass the trial. So he wanted to try to persuade Ren. She didn't know, but to persuade a girl he would need at least 7 tongues. "How many rounds of physical trials like this are there?" Sang-hyun politely asked, but Ren didn't answer and seemed more irritated by his laid-back attitude. As if she was sure of her victory. Just win, then do whatever you want. Jen charged forward, swinging her sword. Sang-hyun stood still, waiting for her to get close, then activated acceleration, knocking Jen's sword away and pinning her against the wall. "Be quiet! Don't make me angry!" Sang-hyun, the domineering man, didn't understand what had just happened for a moment while he continued to ask about the trial process. "Do you intend to take anything?" Ren asked. The administrators all squinted, waiting for his decision, but Sang-hyun had already embraced a path of asceticism, so he had no interest in the opposite sex. "Why do you ask that? Who would come all the way here just to do that?" Sang-hyun countered in her eyes. He was just a bewildered deer, according to Ren. There are still 2 more physical trials. The faith trial will start at the 5th and 6th gates. And the last one is the trial of divine power, but Ren said he should give up early because no one has ever passed the 7th trial. Anyone who reaches that gate will either go insane or die from the 7 openings. Bleeding continuously, Sang-hyun used his fire dragon eye to know she wasn't lying, so he had to believe it. Jen wanted to say her last words before leaving. Blood kept flowing, and Sang-hyun, using the fire dragon eye, realized she wasn't lying, so even though he didn't want to, he had to believe her and wanted to say his last words before leaving. Battling you is the most exhilarating fight, but there's no way you can get past this challenge. If I don't finish off Jen Sang, Hyun wonders why she isn't afraid of death, and Jen laughs joyfully. What's there to fear? We'll just return to the tower. With a swift strike, Sang-hyun cleaves her head in 2, not understanding why he feels so disgusted and needs to leave this place quickly. At the next door, an old man with a bald head and a long beard waits, pointing his sword at him, introducing himself as Lucilian, the sword of the God's Testament. Summoning the aura blade, the golden flames shine in Sang-hyun's eyes. Although unstable, he's sure it's a fire sword already at the 3rd level, and there's a fire sword. This means from now on, he will have to risk his life. After exchanging a few blows, Sang-hyun finds it strange that Lucilian's physical abilities and techniques can't compare to his, yet his sword energy keeps dissipating. When Nam-gong used the fire sword, he thought it was a high-level skill, but perhaps it was just because he was too strong. Lucilian's fire sword isn't anything special. After another clash, Sang-hyun's sword energy fades again. Even if your aura is strong, it can't destroy this sword. Only those who can control the unseen can do that. Those are the ones who can control the invisible. Lucy firmly states that he's weaker than him but can still use the fire sword. This feeling is just like seeing those less capable than him scoring higher on tests. It's so frustrating. What the hell is the unseen? He must destroy that sword at all costs. Sang-hyun charges forward with a single goal to shatter that sword. Victory is a must. Even as Lucilian mumbles about his faith in God, the sword is finally cleaved in 2. While fighting, Sang-hyun realizes something. The difference between sword energy and the fire sword lies in the source of the fire sword's power, which comes from the user's will. A strong will is needed to bear it. Ha ha ha! Lucilian laughs, causing more blood to spew forth. His eyes sparkle like an anime character from the last century. Your sword energy is original, but it's more stable than mine. Because my fire sword is merely borrowed from the testament of the gods, but I think you've passed the test. Sang-haeon doesn't understand why he looks so happy. Could it be that Lucilian cares more about his achievements than his own death? It seems he has some ulterior motive. Whether it's fanaticism or faith, Lucilian's hands tremble. He has sensed that Sang-haeon has proven his martial arts, and he just needs to keep moving forward. He slices off the old man's head, who is about to die, yet still has the habit of talking too much. After collecting his soul, his proficiency in the C-level soul mimic skill reaches 100%, and Sung-hyun advances to B-level soul mimic. Each time he levels up, he's curious about the new skills he'll receive. The side effect allows Sang-haeon to gain a power from a stronger opponent when he defeats them. Indeed, the soul mimic skill never disappoints. Being at B level is already this impressive. So what would it be like if he reached A or S level? Looking at the beautiful status board makes Sang-haeon satisfied. Back when he was a trainee, he never thought he could achieve this level. He could reach this level. From Lucilian's soul, Sang-haeon gains the skill of unyielding will, which enhances his physical abilities and concentration when facing stronger opponents. Sang-haeon confidently steps into the fourth door, but inside the room is completely empty. This makes him even more alert, so Lucilian is dead. A being with angelic wings appears above Sang-haeon. It's a boy with dark eyes from staying up late grinding ranks, but the administrators have warned him to be careful. Sang-haeon slashed at the ceiling, but he had landed, and seeing his attitude, he guessed that Sang-haeon didn't like small talk, so he decided to start the trial right away. Before the battle began, he provided his background, a pastor training Kiran, a stronger opponent than Sang-haeon, which activated his indomitable will. Sang-haeon sensed the energy was far different from the three bishops before. Karen summoned a shard of glass and shot it towards him at the speed of light. Sang-haeon jumped aside to avoid it just as the shards reflected back at him. Fortunately, he used the fire dragon eye immediately to block that beam of light. It reflected off the mirror and caused damage, so he needed to attack Chiron before those beams were unleashed. Sang-haeon stomped his foot and leaped up. Chiron flapped his wings, creating a level 13 gust of wind that blew him back to the ground. Then he immediately used his fire sword to attack, causing Sung-hyun to grit his teeth and brace himself. It turned out to be Karen's unbeatable strategy, using light beams to attack from a distance, even if he managed to block them. He would still be injured by the mirrors placed everywhere reflecting from hidden angles, while Karen used those wings to create wind from above, breaking his balance. Then he counterattacked with the fire sword. Indeed, it was a tricky move, and he couldn't break the mirrors because doing so would create smaller shards. The reflected beams multiplied, and he only had 2 eyes. Sung-hyun's 2 masters seemed to be sitting on a pile of fire, but he kept moving forward because life allowed Chiron to continue attacking, launching 4 beams of light that reflected in every corner of the mirrors. They aimed at Sung-hyun, resulting in a huge explosion accompanied by dust, but no skin or flesh fell. Everything was absorbed by the shield, and that last blow charged enough energy for the shield. So Sung-hyun just needed to unleash it, returning Chiron's attack with the damage he dealt, making him experience the pain of the weaker ones. What the hell is this? I see no evidence that you have learned magic. Could it be that you were granted holy power? Chiron mumbled, while Sang-hyun knew nothing about holy power or holy energy. Karen nodded, finally declaring that he wouldn't run away or lose, qualifying to complete the entire trial and prove his body Sang-haeon, absorbing his soul and taking away a power, the holy power engraved in his soul. Sang-haeon only understood that holy power was the strength that the bishops here used like mana. After obtaining it, he felt the energy in his heart but couldn't move it, and of course it was different from mana reacting to the 2 masters making Sang-hyun curious about the dominance of holy power. If he had more of it, would he become the ruler of the world? Approaching the 5th door, an old woman not even 1 meter tall was waiting for him, welcoming the one with martial arts. Sang-hyun asked what it meant, and the old woman explained the meaning of the name. Because his only purpose was to win and keep getting stronger, and one day become the most powerful indeed. Sang-haeon wanted to be stronger, but to become the most powerful was a bit much. Suddenly she stood right next to him without him noticing, and spoke as if she could read Sang-haeon's thoughts. I'm not exaggerating. It's just the final result of your efforts. Sang-haeon immediately swung his sword in caution, but her voice echoed again, this time above his head, then suddenly appeared in front of Sang-haeon. Don't lose control! This trial doesn't prove your physical abilities. Its purpose is to demonstrate your faith. The faster Sang-hyun swung, the less he hit. Her movements were indeed impossible, but not entirely. There was only one possibility: she resided in his consciousness, thousands of her old hands reaching out. Grabbing his limbs, Sung-hyun felt all his strength being drained. The old woman's drooling mouth opened wide before him and swallowed him like a hamburger. She took a sip and spat him out briefly, saying that Sung-hyun was still confused, thinking he was inside her belly, when he heard that the fifth door had successfully closed. Now you can go. Because the fifth trial begins with superconsciousness. In other words, only those with strong willpower can truly look into their own hearts. She sensed that strong willpower in him. A steadfast will can crush anyone to become stronger no matter what. I still remember that feeling. The desire to be stronger lures you to kill whoever it may be, that deep-seated craving within you. She raised her hand as if she were channeling. Sang-gyong remained silent, unsure of what to say, even when she told him to send her off to the afterlife. Sang-gyong's outright refusal startled her because he had already passed through this threshold. So killing another person would be pointless, obviously. It must be asked, isn't it surprising, ha-ha, if I'd known I would have let you go through the entire trial process. Hearing this made Sang-gyong want to chop off that silver-haired head. Finally, she stopped talking, patted his shoulder, and wished him well on his upcoming journey. As Sang-hyun moved deeper into the corridor, it grew darker and more obscure. The darkness gradually seeped through the mirror, and soon he found himself in a pitch-black void where he couldn't even see his 5 fingers when he reached out. A voice suddenly echoed in his ear, startling Sung-hyun. He immediately swung his sword on high alert again. He thought to himself, "You guessed right." The person replied, having read his thoughts, as Sung-hyun once again entered the realm of consciousness. The old woman from earlier, named Hania, had planted a seed on him. That's why Sang-gyong could penetrate the realm of consciousness. It turned out that when she patted his shoulder, she did that. It was indeed careless, but you don't need to worry too much. Your outer body is being guarded by me, the 6th bishop said, but he felt this was even more concerning. After being threatened by her to cut his throat, Sang-gyong felt nervous and asked about how to prove his faith politely. The nun chuckled in satisfaction. Now that's more like it. According to her, he was currently in the realm of consciousness, and he just needed to look straight into his own awareness to pass this trial. A person's awareness is greatly influenced by their faith. But he didn't have to worry about this because it felt just like closing his eyes and falling into a dark void. In short, if he could perceive the essence in the realm of awareness, which is inherently invisible, he would pass through the gate. So in the name of Aileen, as a nun, I declare. The 6th trial begins. As she finished speaking, Sang-hyun fell into a dark water area, fortunately reacting in time to avoid choking. Aileen whispered in his ear, "Surprised yet?" The pain is very real, isn't it? He would have to quickly find a solution, or else he would experience the feeling of drowning in awareness. Whatever was difficult, Sang-hyun activated his mind like a solid stone to regain his composure and get back in the race. It felt quite good, so he could sense that something had just passed through his fingertips. Aileen was quite surprised by his determination, not expecting him to react by moving his body while his mind was lost in the realm of consciousness. Aileen kept her distance from Sung-hyun because in reality he was swinging his sword wildly. She thought to herself that she had to keep the secret of how she almost killed him. After that, his bodily senses were returning, albeit slowly. However, 2 hours had passed outside, and Aileen said that this was quite a fast speed comparable to a monster, which was quite astonishing. Inside, Sang-gyong was panicking because time in the real world was passing much faster. If he remained stuck here, it wouldn't be long before 7 days would pass and he would die from exceeding the time limit. He tried to feel his body and activated the fire dragon eye to see everything around him, but now it was a sea of blood. Aileen held her head in frustration, unable to believe what the hell was happening. Why did the once hazy realm of consciousness suddenly become so clear? Not only that, but Sang-gyong also sprouted 2 pairs of wings, making her look more majestic than anyone he had ever seen with such strange wings. Inside her consciousness, Sang-gyong was flying at incredible speed. The light and brilliance passed through the realm of perception, but he couldn't quite grasp what it symbolized, as it was distorted and terrifying. After a moment, he stopped at a circle formed by swords. Sung-hyun grabbed a blade, slicing through everything around him, and at the same time he returned to reality, bewildered by the wreckage he had caused. But could he really prove his faith like this? It has nothing to do with proving faith. It's about acknowledging oneself, Aileen explained, because people often don't fully understand their own beliefs, and they might not even know what they believe or think about. The purpose of this trial is to confront the realm of consciousness, created from the process of thinking, believing, and acting after overcoming a dark past, and to become stronger without losing one's human essence. That's what she read from his inner self, though sometimes being honest with one's desires is difficult. It's the right path again, so this time Ailen had to say goodbye to Sanjion. He confidently opened the seventh door, the final door of the trial. An eye on the ceiling stared directly into his, and that was when the examining god was watching Sanjion. He remembered that he had once said no one had ever passed the seventh trial. And now Sung-hyun was pinned down, unable to move. The weight of the eye felt heavier by the moment, like a month without sleep, but he knew this was the feeling of a tiny creature when confronted with a supreme entity that he could not resist. His body instinctively gave up on survival and accepted that gaze. This was the sensation of helplessness he felt when he lost his family. Sang-haeon was in too much pain, and he didn't want to endure it any longer. Sang-haeon fiercely drove into his palm, using the pain to stay alert while activating his blood deficiency to reduce damage. "I won't just sit here and let others trample on me anymore," he shouted, trying to find a solution in this tower. "There's always a way to solve things, right? Maybe I have to strike that eye. At the very least, I have to try once." Sanjin used lightning sword energy to slash in a crescent shape or whatever it was, cutting through the wound that flew towards the eye, dissipating like smoke. He gradually lost consciousness, feeling frustrated. His courage had impressed the examining god, who was very pleased to meet someone like him after a long time. A challenger with such a strong spirit, so he requested that he prove himself. Only then did the seventh door truly open, and the eye vanished, leaving only Sung-hyun. He was drenched in sweat, his body still remembering the shock of facing the divine being he was now encountering. A mirror appeared, and Sang-hyun curiously stepped closer. Inside was an image of him in the future. The tower began to link the two entities and synchronize. Sung-hyun touched the mirror to begin the challenge of testing his mind. The rate of assimilation with the entity in the mirror would gradually increase. Sang-haeon fell into the endless space of the mirror and was then dropped into the first trial room, where Johan was crying, searching for his mirror. A blinding light burst forth behind him, and Sang-haeon was transported to another place, Christmas in Korea. Before him was his future self, who had entered an alley and hurt himself with his own hands afterward. His fresh blood was controlled like a weapon, taking the lives of countless innocent people. Sang-hyun was furious at the actions of the entity in the mirror. At this moment, the rate of assimilation began to rise, causing his chest to ache as if it were about to burst, making this feeling a grotesque mix of guilt. "Crazy and furious, that must be you, right?" Johan's moans echoed in his ears as he clutched his head with both hands, casting spells. All the skills that intertwined with his mind had been sealed by him. Sang-hyun immediately sliced through the head of the ghost Johan, but the barrier still did not disappear. During the mental examination, protecting his spirit was of utmost importance. But how can you play when your calming skills are sealed? At that moment, a bright red light emerged from the alley, and the entity in the mirror smiled with satisfaction, realizing it had the life force of others. "If I had known this earlier, I would have acted sooner." The assimilation rate increased to 20%, causing Sanjion to suffer a mental shock, falling into an unusual state of pain so intense that he coughed up blood. He couldn't believe that such a ruthless killer existed. That was indeed my future self. I was obsessed with power, but I could never commit such inhumane acts. Due to the influence of the transformation, his mana proficiency continuously decreased, making him feel as if he was being burned from the inside. At that moment, another future version of Sung-hyun appeared. He approached the martial arts world and summoned the leader of the alliance, promising to spare the remaining lives. The alliance leader, Lee Jin-wan, appeared, having heard of a madman known as the Demon Sword. After making his entrance into the martial arts world, a fierce battle erupted between the two sides, shaking the heavens and earth. In the end that day, the martial arts world was drenched in blood, and Lee Jin-wan was defeated before he was finished off. He asked him if he felt ashamed for killing those he claimed he would spare, and his answer was no. To him, they were just weeds by the roadside, sacrificed for his war resources. The assimilation rate increased another 10%, and Sung-hyun felt even more chaotic. Throughout the time and place in the mirror, after his clones were killed thousands of times, he became stronger. He was no different from a monster. He donned a frenzied appearance, solely focused on becoming stronger, a monster that had never known defeat. The assimilation rate continued to rise, reaching 50%. Now Sung-hyun could even feel satisfaction from the killings mingled with guilt and rage. In South Korea, on a stormy night, Seong-hun kicked open the rooftop door in a fit of rage, thinking he could just walk away. After doing such despicable things. At that moment, Han Sang-jeong, the future version, was dragging the corpse of Baek Mok, but his face showed no emotion. Lee or Ion trembled, unable to hold back tears, shouting, "Why? Why did you choose to kill to become stronger? Why ask me such a meaningless question? Killing is simply beneficial for my growth." He laughed with delight, sending chills down others' spines. Seung-hun removed his mask and stepped forward. Today was a day of heavy rain and thunder, perfect for him to unleash his power. With such weather in his favor, today he must act as heaven's enforcer. The entity Sung-yun calmly stood waiting as Seung-hun charged at him. Indeed, he couldn't see him as an easy opponent, but that was just his past self. In a swift motion, Seung-hun split him in half before he could react, his body falling apart before Lee or Ion leaving her speechless. Meanwhile, Sang-hyun was struggling to crawl through the viscous sea of blood. If he made a mistake, he would be consumed by the mind of this madman. Having only synchronized halfway, he already felt his mind splitting in two. The increased assimilation weakened Sung-yun's mana even further. He frantically slashed at the void, but it was of no use. The assimilation rose to 70%, and the mental shock was so overwhelming that Sung-yun could no longer distinguish between pain and pleasure. He sank into the sea of blood as if about to merge with it, a foolish smile on his face, his eyes vacant. A memory flooded back. He had buried a mirror filled with Johan's holy power. But he tried to pull it out to create a shield, reducing the mental disturbances to protect his head, and the barrier surrounding Sung-yun's head was finally removed. The transforming energy had vanished by this point. Sung-yun's essence froze for a moment before he took Lee's life or the ion from within his body. Sung-yun tore his body in half and declared, "I won't let myself be swallowed." The system notified him that he had completed the mental test, proving that his faith would never change. The end of the mental test was also when he returned to the mirror. It turned out he had been standing in front of it, screaming madly. His two masters felt relieved that Sung-hyun had returned to normal, and the examining god was very pleased with his performance. And he wanted to meet Sung-yun. The stone beneath his feet cracked and disappeared, and Sung-yun was forcibly summoned to the divine realm, of course with the tower's permission. And the administrators could no longer monitor him. After a while, Sung-hyun opened his eyes and found himself in a place that could be called either sea or sky. A beam of light appeared, forming an extraordinary body with a voice that seemed to come from his mind. "Who are you? Why do I sense divine power from you?" That was the examining god. He felt strange looking directly at Sang-hyun, wondering if he was a divine replica created by the tower. Sang-hyun didn't know what a divine replica was, so he asked back. According to the examining god, those were the administrators, and he just wanted to make sure if he had received divine power through a pact with the tower or not. "I'm not an administrator, just a challenger," he replied honestly, and the god also felt he was different from the administrators because the divine power he possessed was his own, and the tower had become more interesting during his absence. Then surely the tower realized that they couldn't create real things using replicas. That's why the tower created a false identity using the apostle of the divine replica, and the examining god concluded that Sang-hyun was not an ordinary existence. "What?" Sang-han was astonished. He didn't quite understand the god's meaning, as if he had done something extraordinary. But all he did was steal from Chiron. He asked again how important divine power was. The god mumbled incomprehensible phrases. "You really don't know the answer when you've extracted divine power yourself. I thought you had eliminated all traces of the divine. Because you already knew, right? It seemed like you had no idea at all." Sang-hyun honestly said he had just accidentally obtained it. This only made him more confused, accidentally obtaining it. But completely eliminating all traces of the divine from the divine power he granted to his servant, the examining god informed him that obtaining Chiron's divine power was not a coincidence, but rather a cause and effect. Moreover, he was sure that the tower was very hopeful about him, but it seemed the tower was listening to the conversation between the two, so it got angry when the god let slip those things. He immediately stopped the conversation and said he would watch over his future journey. "I still have a few things to ask. What will happen to me in the future?" Sung-hyun still wanted to ask more, but his head suddenly throbbed. The god said he had looked too deeply into the future, so the future would also look back at him, waiting for the opportunity to invade his mind, and he advised Sang-hyun to be cautious about that. Sang-hyun wanted to talk more, but the examining god could not continue. No matter which god it was, the tower remained a very difficult existence to negotiate. He scheduled to meet him at the examining temple next time. Finally, the god left Sang-hyun with a piece of advice. "Don't trust the other gods. They now see you as an enemy." Sang-hyun wanted to chat more, but the examining god couldn't continue. No matter which god it was, the tower remained a very difficult entity to negotiate with. He scheduled a meeting with him at the examination temple next time. Finally, the god left Sang-hyun with a piece of advice. "Don't trust the other gods. They now see you as an enemy." It was almost time, so he decided to run there to warm up. Sung Gun dashed like a superhero, making everyone on the street that day feel like their eyes were playing tricks on them as he reached the registration point at the Haiyan dungeon entrance. Just then, Sung Gun arrived, and the moment he stopped, the shockwave he created surged forth so powerful that it nearly blew away their little hut. Haiyan twitched his lips. It had only been half a month since they last met, and he had improved so much. Originally planning to attack the dungeon in an hour, but feeling bored, they both jumped right in. Inside the dungeon was a field of golden ripe rice. The wheat stalks towered over them, provided by the guild with the queen's necklace, creating a shield and granting invisibility, so Sung Gun only needed to worry about himself. Suddenly, his skill, Eagle Eye, activated automatically, alerting him to 3 strange objects moving beneath the wheat, approaching him as they got closer. He jumped to avoid the grotesque monsters, with sharp teeth lunging straight for his heart. Haiyan panicked. They were deadly poison monsters. And importantly, they shouldn't be appearing in a C-rank dungeon. Sung Gun wasn't as anxious. He calmly took down each one, effortlessly leaving Haiyan astonished. Then she felt joy finally finding a father for her children as Sung Gun tirelessly fought the poison monsters. Avoiding their bites to prevent getting poisoned, he activated his Thunderstrike skill, momentarily forgetting that he had this skin. A poison monster charged at him from behind with its mouth wide open, aiming to bite his head. Luckily, Sung Gun dodged just in time. Otherwise, his head would have been right in its mouth. Sung Gun grabbed its tail and slammed its whole body to the ground, causing the tiles to crack. He waved his hands, calling Haiyan, saying he had cleared the path and just needed her to step in. Haiyan was still stunned by Sung Gun's solo performance, taking on 10 monsters at once. The poison monsters were usually suggested for C-rank hunting teams to eliminate. But look at that, our main character could fight them off with just a shield and a mirror along with various skins. Haiyan confidently asserted that Sung Gun would continue to grow even more. Who knows, he might even become her husband someday. Taking the opportunity, Sung Gun absorbed the souls of the poison monsters, and his stats only increased slightly. He predicted that the boss wouldn't be too overpowered. In the boss room, it was a different space, with towering rock walls and intertwined tree trunks creating a narrow, suffocating path. The silence added to Haiyan's discomfort. They couldn't sense the presence of any creatures. Just then, a beam of mana shot down right above Haiyan's head, and the boss suddenly appeared with a fierce expression. Excited, this greeting startled both of them. Sung Gun picked Haiyan up and jumped out, but her mind was filled with images of the boss, the poison monster, inhaling to unleash a mana attack toward them. The wave of mana surged right behind them, causing a massive explosion that shook the cave. From the smoke, Sung Gun emerged carrying Haiyan and landing on a large tree high above. They had escaped the boss's line of sight. It was searching around for their bodies. Haiyan wanted to give him a bit of her power skill, but it could wait. Sung Gun refused. He had just saved Haiyan from running away. This was his style. He charged directly behind the boss, startling it. Sung Gun had stacked his graceful wind skill 7 times, and this was the moment to use it while the boss was preparing to unleash mana. He approached it, and before the boss could blink, Sung Gun swung his sword beneath it, slicing the boss into 3 pieces. Haiyan, witnessing from above, tensed up. Now she wondered who the real monster was. After leaving the boss room, Hee-Yoon declared that he had passed the test. Additionally, she reminded him of another thing: when they reached the training tower, the difficulty would gradually increase over time. Those who chose a hard difficulty from the start could switch to an easier level. Hee-Yoon assessed Sung Gun's unreasonable growth. He might have chosen a difficulty with a death penalty. Although she had seen him fight twice, she still hoped he would be a bit more careful to return in one piece to be her husband or friend. That night was his last night on Earth in the past 3 days, and Sung Gun had been quite busy. However, he also felt more confident in himself. On his 3rd return to the tower, he decided to try even harder. As soon as he got back to his room, he sought out the training. The 8th floor has branching paths for players like Sung Gun who want to increase their accuracy for the Soul Strike. He thought he would jump right into the fight, but Sung Gun actually has the ability to be a vanguard. Therefore, he meets a manager, the bloodthirsty tyrant, who just informed him that the system has taken Sung Gun away. The place he lands is the world of the bloodthirsty tyrant. Contrary to its name, the scenery around is covered in thick white snow. Sung Gun uses his truth eye to search for information. But the system only says this is where the bloodthirsty tyrant lives. The tyrant communicates with him through messages, feeling offended that he scrutinizes this place. Then she orders him to follow the sword, which hovers in the air thanks to a red mana stream leading him to a level 4 wooden house. As soon as he steps inside, Sung Gun feels a gaze upon him. The bloodthirsty tyrant sits cross-legged on a chair looking at him welcoming the vanguard. The bloodthirsty tyrant introduces herself. He thought she was just some old guy, but the tyrant is actually a girl with pink hair, and Sung Gun is astonished, captivated by her beauty. But roses have thorns as beautiful as they are. Yet she is the administrator of this tower. Suddenly, the bloodthirsty tyrant stands right in front of Sung Gun, scrutinizing him. He is shocked that he has been staring at her without noticing her movements. The bloodthirsty tyrant grabs a bottle of wine, assessing him as just an ordinary person, even though his battles have left quite an impression on her. However, she only knows the results. No one can observe the challenges below the 8th floor. The bloodthirsty tyrant sips a glass of wine made from orange juice, stating that administrators are merely subordinates of the tower. As long as she remains a subordinate of the tower, she cannot harm Sung Gun. This negotiation is for personal benefit, allowing the vanguard to ask any questions and receive answers without needing a question form. Sung Gun asks about the intruders on the 5th floor. The bloodthirsty tyrant laughs and explains that when intruding into another floor, one can receive better rewards and benefits than challengers from other worlds. Those are usually the ones who have been in the tower for 15 levels. When someone defeats them, they will receive a significant reward. One day, the tower of this world will merge with the tower of another world. Upon hearing this, Sung Gun wonders, and she continues to explain that after the 20th floor, there will be many combined trials. This means Sung Gun will encounter other intruders. The last question Sung Gun wants to know is what the trial tower is. The bloodthirsty tyrant ponders. She has always wondered about that too. An administrator like her doesn't know any information. She was once a challenger. Those who died from the 14th floor and above have the privilege of resurrection and becoming administrators. She had climbed the tower before, and all the administrators who died could not reach the top. Sung Gun clenches his fist, disappointed, saying he had been looking forward to learning about the top of the tower. Mentioning the top of the tower makes the bloodthirsty tyrant uncomfortable. She immediately grabs Sung Gun by the collar, threatening him with a gaze that exudes danger. The top of the tower is not something you can speak of lightly. Sung Gun remains unfazed in contrast to her anger. The bloodthirsty tyrant is also surprised that he is not afraid. Sung Gun grabs the door and breaks it, escaping from the bloodthirsty tyrant's grip. "I won't let you attack me so easily," he asserts coldly. The bloodthirsty tyrant stares in astonishment and then bursts into refreshing laughter. This is the first time someone dares to break into an administrator's home. This boy is quite interesting. The bloodthirsty tyrant proposes to sign a master-servant contract with Sung Gun. After returning, Sung Gun immediately checks the exclusive shop. When signing a contract with the administrator, Sung Gun will be able to buy items that only the bloodthirsty tyrant sells. However, the second page can only be opened after reaching the 10th floor. Currently, with his initial SP points, he can only choose one of 3 items to purchase. Sung Gun decides to buy the Heart of the Stone table, which will help him make rational decisions in all situations, without being swayed by emotions. After equipping it, Sung Gun enters the 8th floor-themed Destruction. He needs to defeat the zombies summoning skeletal warriors. He thought the game would be easy, but Sung Gun is now wide-eyed, because beneath his feet lies a pile of bones stacked so densely that not even a mosquito could pass through. They might want to overwhelm him with numbers, but Sung Gun doesn't care about that. He charges into the midst of the skeletal swarm, causing the surrounding area to explode. White bones shatter and scatter, and the skeletons begin to rush in to bite and tear at their target. He charged into the midst of the skeletal encirclement, causing the surrounding area to explode. White bones shattered and flew everywhere as the skeletons began to rush in to tear their target apart. Sung Gun let them take a swing at me and see what happens. But just 2 words, that's too weak. I can smash their bones like breaking sticks, yet because they're so weak, my skill only increased by 0.08. I feel frustrated wasting my energy on this bunch of losers. Suddenly, a voice echoed from afar. "Which bastard dares to disturb my sacred land?" Sung Gun quickly turned toward the source of the sound. It could be the boss. He immediately absorbed the fake energy and summoned his skeletal minions. They would fight the tower's bone soldiers while Sung Gun moved forward. Graceful as the wind, he slipped through the dense ranks of bone soldiers, rushing toward the distant boss, which he was sure was in an ancient castle. Upon arrival, he saw a bone soldier dressed in rags. Covering his malnourished body, holding a summoning book, the soldier looked down on Sung Gun, sneering at a lowly human daring to invade his magnificent castle. "You will pay dearly for this," he declared, and with that he summoned 2 gatekeeper monsters. Sung Gun assessed them. They were about as strong as a big clumsy dog. He felt bored that the boss could only summon these 2 big guys. Infuriated by being looked down upon by someone he despised, he ordered the two big guys to tear Sung Gun apart. Sung Gun swiftly executed a move, taking off both their round heads. He then approached the boss, who could only stammer in shock. "What the hell is this?" Sung Gun slashed him across the body, causing him to lose his footing and fall to the ground. After taking down the two big guys, his skill proficiency increased by 1.2%. Sung Gun was satisfied with this progress. But in the eyes of the undead, he was nothing more than a bloodthirsty monster frantically grinding for experience points. Sung Gun decided to end level 8 here. However, he noticed the beautiful summoning book of the boss, and his smile gradually turned sinister. Sung Gun decided to ask him for a few things, tossing the summoning book to him. "Summon every time a guard dies. You can bring them back after a few minutes." Sung Gun demanded he summon one right now, and when the boss hesitated, he threatened him with his sword. The boss hurriedly flipped through the pages, and soon 2 aggressive guards were summoned just like before. Sung Gun easily dealt with them, and the undead asked him, "Is that enough?" But this is just the beginning. Sung Gun ordered him to summon all his guards while he continuously eliminated them for experience points. The undead felt exploited and was quite upset. "How much longer do we have to do this?" Sung Gun was still busy slashing away, of course, until I tell him to stop. He kept fighting to increase his proficiency. Finally, his soul skill reached 100% and leveled up to C. A weak voice echoed from behind, "I will curse you after I die." It was the level 8 boss literally being drained to the bone by Sung Gun. He moved closer to inspect the cracks that spread every time the boss summoned. He had reached his limit. Although Sung Gun intended to play a little longer, it seemed he had to send him off before he completely lost consciousness. The undead cursed, "Meeting you is making me sick." Damn humanity. So level 8 was completed. Now Sung Gun's soul skill had a 20% chance of gaining skills from that soul. To him, level 8 was quite dull, but that didn't mean level 9 would be the same. He always equipped himself before battle, checking his thunder sword to see that his dagger skill had already maxed out. Now he had to find a new toy to replace the thunder sword. Gliding back and forth, he couldn't find a satisfactory sword, so Sung Gun decided to create one himself for speed. He decided to combine 2 sword skills. Since the dagger skill was at level D, the synthesis process would revolve around it, resulting in a C-level demonic hunter skill that doubled the attack speed against non-human enemies. Indeed, he was most pleased with this power of skill combination, holding a bunch of skills in his hands. Sung Gun decided to combine just one more time. So he continuously combined, creating new skills, then combining the new skills again. In the end, he received the Gray Blood skill with regeneration and pain reduction capabilities. To test the new skin, Sung Gun decided to turn off the recovery effect of the waiting room. All souls were absorbed, so there was no shield. Sung Gun cut off his own arm to test it. One clean slice severed his left arm, but it was immediately regenerated to the point where he didn't feel any pain. Sung Gun felt incredibly powerful at that moment, like the main character from some comic. As for the assassin's cloak he would wear until it falls apart. Waiting now is just a waste of time. He decided to dive straight into the 9th floor, tasked with eliminating all the monsters in one day. However, as soon as he entered the system, warned that there was a challenger invading the martial arts world. He had even eliminated all the monsters of Sung Gun, and now he had to defeat him to pass the 9th floor. Seeing Sung Gun, he stood atop the corpses of the monsters and introduced himself as the leader of the martial arts alliance, Bak San, the old man with gray hair from the Xiao world. He wanted to know Sung Gun's name, but he was sure that those who invade have no good intentions. Revealing his identity wouldn't help, he muttered. It was the least courtesy among fellow practitioners. Sung Gun felt disgusted, as those from another dimension were all bizarre, saying that he lifted his sword and charged. Although he looked over 100 years old, his strength was not to be underestimated. Hundreds of sword strikes were launched at Sung Gun, who also responded gracefully like the wind. Blocking his strikes, all that could be heard was the deafening clang of metal. After a moment of intimidation, both retreated to assess each other. He smirked, realizing that there were indeed masters here. "Forgive me for underestimating you." Sung Gun exhaled. He was already tired of facing hypocrites. He was sure this guy was here just to kill him and claim the reward. The attitude of fair competition made him feel disgusted. At that moment, he revealed his fierce aura through his cold eyes and raised his sword to unleash his sword-light ability. Dark purple smoke enveloped the area, temporarily blinding Sung Gun for 5 seconds. He said his final words to the nameless swordsman while Sung Gun was engulfed in complete darkness. He used a mana resistance combo, reducing the blindness time to 2.5 seconds along with his spirit eye to see through the enemy's attack path. Just as he did, the tip of his sword was right behind Sung Gun. He quickly turned to dodge the attack, but still got a cut across his neck. At that moment, the sword light ended. Gray blood activated to heal the previous wound, leaving Sung Gun surprised that he could dodge an attack in the pitch black. He didn't have time to respond and immediately charged to attack him. As soon as the two swords clashed, a shockwave erupted, causing the ground around them to crack. Sung Gun turned and kicked while Sanhak used his sturdy knee to block the blow. Then from above, he swung a sword straight down at Sung Gun, who was also swinging his sword horizontally at him. Sanhak used his hand to block Sung Gun's sword hilt. Meanwhile, Sung Gun used his foot to pin down his sword hand. Both attacks from either side were blocked, indicating they were evenly matched. He muttered about the dark magic being very strange. Sung Gun didn't care what he was saying. Now his stats had increased, but were still only equal to that old man. This time, Sanhak would not hold back. He unleashed his sword, light trapping Sung Gun in the dark. Sung Gun cursed as he used the mana resistance combo and Spirit Eye again. This time, his sword blades flew at incredible speed. Sung Gun blocked each strike, but still received a horizontal slash across his back, immediately activating the Blessing of Steel. However, his shield still shattered into pieces. It simply couldn't withstand that full-force attack. 2.5 seconds passed, and the scene returned to normal as Sung Gun shattered a nearby rock. Shielding Sanhak's view, he sliced the large rock in half right before his eyes, while Sung Gun had jumped back, increasing the distance between them. Sanhak turned back to see Sung Gun healing his wounds. He frowned and muttered again about dark magic. He thought Sung Gun was a skilled martial artist, but it seemed he was just borrowing from elsewhere. Shaking his wrist to check, he said without looking back at himself. The sword light he used was also a unique skill obtained from that tower. While pretending to be righteous, Sung Gun activated his graceful wind 7 times, immediately closing in on Sanhak, who swung his sword to block in surprise. The weight of this attack made him struggle. Sanhak had previously overcome countless challenge floors with his sword. He had drawn blood from challengers from other worlds, among them those from Earth were the weakest of the weak. Compared to a jar of honey, they couldn't even touch a hair on his head. Yet this time, Sung Gun had pierced through that silver hair. His long hair flew in the wind, but his face was filled with anger. Sung Gun continued to swing his sword until he completely pushed him back. His wounds had healed, but Sanhak was struggling with a bloodied face. The administrators had now placed their bets on Sung Gun. Sanhak, furious at being in a weak position, decided to activate his skills. The movement speed increased by 2.8 times in a minute. Sung Gun sneered, "Aren't you the one who looks down on magic?" However, because of hunting the black, he had to suffer the penalty of an intruder. All his stats dropped by 8 points, and he couldn't use some skills, but the light sword still worked. Sung Gun was used to him spewing out smoke and then ambushing him. The black hunter poured all his strength into a slash, screaming madly, "I will kill you." Sung Gun used 3 slashes to confront him. The two sides collided, creating a blinding light from the mana as the blind spot of time ended. The black hunter stood still while Sung Gun collapsed in exhaustion, but across his body was a decisive slash from Sung Gun. He trembled all over and could only utter 3 words. "No way." He fell down with his body in one place and his feet in another. Sung Gun absorbed the soul of Bexen H, and his stats increased by 27%. Due to the intruder, the reward changed to a level C6 sense. Sung Gun assessed this skill as having a higher rank than Monster Instincts. He decided to return to the waiting room and review it later. Suddenly, the administrators frantically sent messages to Sung Gun. After witnessing his match, they could now view trials from the 9th floor and above after the update. Sung Gun smiled proudly, meaning the administrators had acknowledged him. However, the bloodthirsty tyrant reminded him not to be enchanted by the other administrators, since the two had signed a pact. Sung Gun obediently listened to the White Crane Swordmaster who requested further examination. The right to enter the contractor in his exclusive shop. Sung Gun's bloodthirsty master also agreed, and the administrators only granted the right to receive the contractor's favor. Well, Sung Gun was quite curious about this. At some point, they would contact him again. Finally, Sung Gun decided to accept the request from the White Crane Swordmaster, adding the Swordmaster's aura to the shop. After returning, the system notified Sung Gun that he could enter the common area. He wondered if the administrators could observe events in the common area. "Are you still watching?" He spoke up, asking, but there was no response. Sung Gun cleared his throat. After all, only he knew how awkward he felt. The main character assessed the Swordmaster's aura. It had the ability to channel mana and use sword energy. For him, this skill was quite solid. Having reached the 10th floor, he could view the second page of the shop where 3 skills appeared. He rated them as excellent, but he only had 2000 SP points. He needed to buy the Swordmaster's aura or regenerate bones, recalling the battle with that old man, the Black Hunter. A powerful madman. To avoid being overwhelmed, Sung Gun decided to buy the Swordmaster's aura. After activation, he swung a few times to test the other skills, channeling mana like a waterfall. But this skill felt like a gentle stream, just as its name suggested. It consumed 2% mana per minute, and in just 50 minutes he would run out of mana, so Sung Gun immediately turned off the effect. He reminded himself to control the mana usage. There was another reward, the sixth sense, which would simply enhance his senses to their peak. Finally, he wandered around the community where there were quite a few comments about the square here. A player recounted the exchange of authority with others. The square gathered countless contestants and conducted transactions with other administrators, feeling like there was a new game to play. Sung-hun decided to enter the square to see what was hot. The square was a different space, notably featuring players made of flesh. This guy was excitedly exploring around, but unfortunately, he fell into the sights of the hunters who were frolicking down the road. Suddenly, he was targeted by special effects. It made him collapse as the hunters appeared behind him, laughing sinisterly. The leader licked his blade mockingly. "So you're Korean, huh?" The Korean guy gritted his teeth. They hadn't even started the trial yet, and they were already robbing the girl behind him. He shouted in indignation, "Hey, can you really do this?" "How about a trade, then?" he sneered. "If she leaves all her belongings, we'll let one of you go." Just as he was about to act, a shadow swept by. He turned around confused as the figure in black casually walked past them without doing anything, but they found it strange. Unlike the story's plot, he called out, "Hey, you in the black hood!" The hooded figure turned back. "Did you call me?" Seeing that he was also Korean, they laughed savagely. It seemed to them that Koreans were easy to bully, so they launched a full attack. He sighed. "I just want to be humble. They forgot that I'm the main character in this story." Sung Gun raised his hand to deflect their attacks, and the leader stared in shock as Sung Gun instantly countered before they could activate their skills. He killed one guy using ice shields, but it shattered under Sung Gun's punch. The guy panicked and begged, "Wait, I was wrong." Before he could even kneel down to apologize, Sung Gun's sword pierced through his throat. After absorbing the soul, Sung Gun planned to leave. The girl apologized for not being able to help more. The Korean guy struck up a conversation, guessing that Sung Gun was a businessman. Sung Gun just nodded. "Sure, let's go with that." After all, he had always been in the top 10. The guy immediately cheered, not forgetting to thank Sung Gun for saving his life. Sung Gun didn't pay much attention. He just killed them to avoid trouble. Sung Gun decisively walked away. But it seemed the guy still had something to say. He hesitated and then said, "Those lifeless bodies." Sung Gun was confused, but he promised to trade Sung Gun a skill he used to absorb the lifeless bodies into a black hole in his palm. He looked satisfied, as if he just had a delicious meal. As promised, he gave Sung Gun a practical skill from the administrator that allowed him to create wings on his back and fly. Indeed, at that moment, Bai Ha Sword and Blood King were complaining about the illegal trade with Sung Gun. Sung Gun was also at a loss with these administrators. However, they were competing for players, meaning the players had something they wanted. The guy took the opportunity to share some information he had. Currently, the dimensions invading Earth are Ares martial arts and Kalian. Sung Gun had encountered a guy from Ares in heavy armor and a hunter from martial arts. Kalian was home to elves, fairies, and beastmen. As they walked and talked, they arrived at the community area. He handed Sung Gun a business card. It turned out he was the manager of the team. The manager of the challenger from the Hunter Association who might be needed later. Once they entered the public area, everything returned to normal. Challengers were not allowed to fight each other. The guy rubbed his hands, deciding to head to the auction area for a bit, while Sung Gun also had a place he needed to go, the arena. Sang Hyun entered the arena and heard young men angrily shouting, "Lost again." This time it was a big loss. He thought to himself about this place called the arena. It looked no different from a sports betting area. The administrators felt the same way. In front there were seating areas, and Sung Hyun wondered if he could sit there. Kids might hesitate, but for an adult like him, he just sat down. Worst case, he would get kicked out. The arena system was being activated with a choice between betting and fighting. The system's announcement was quite confusing, so Sung Hyun read the details. The arena was divided into two systems: betting and fighting. Those who bet would wager on the fighters, potentially losing or earning points depending on the challengers they bet on. Meanwhile, fighters would challenge others for rewards. Once the match was confirmed, their real names and rankings would be announced to validate the match. Sung Hyun needed to bet on types of rewards like skills items or privileges if he won. He would receive rewards corresponding to the opponents he faced. To sum it up, all Sung-hyun remembered was that winning meant rewards while losing meant losing the bet. And a main character like him couldn't lose. So Sung-hyun clicked to participate to see if he could earn any good rewards. Meanwhile, outside players were chanting because they were directly witnessing Catherine the Hell Witch, a famous American hunter known for her achievements and body. Hotter than the sun in Hanoi today is yet another day where Catherine hasn't received a single challenge. It makes her feel frustrated because being the strongest isn't all that fun, especially since Catherine has never lost a match. Her administrator chuckles at how weak the other players are, and Catherine feels it's a waste of time, so she decides to leave. Just then, she receives a challenge from Sang-jeon, who just entered the trial arena and dared to challenge the one who has won 17 consecutive matches like Catherine. This guy is interesting. Catherine decides to go solo against him. Both are transported to the arena, and Catherine smiles, saying, "I admire your courage. But you should be more careful when choosing your opponent." The match begins, and Catherine arrogantly decides to strike first with her fire birth move. She summons a gigantic fireball with one hand, and just looking at it, you can feel the heat. The fireball is launched towards Sung-hyun. He can dodge it, but it has locked onto him as a target. As long as it doesn't hit Sung-hyun, it won't stop. "It's over," Catherine smirks. Although she respects his bravery, Sang-gun stands no chance against her strength, at least not until he uses his skills. With mastery over sword energy, he slices the fireball in half. If it wants to chase him, he'll make sure it has no chance to do so. Catherine is stunned, knocked back in surprise. "A lesson learned, huh? I'll be the one to teach it to you," Sang-hyun says coldly. Now the match officially begins in a clearing in the woods. A gender-ambiguous figure with long silver hair is observing Sanjin through a water mirror, smiling in satisfaction as Sanjeon has mastered sword energy. It was worth the effort to give him a fancy special skill from now on. He needs to quickly win his favor. Perhaps Sanjeon will resolve the long-standing grudge that this person has been unable to handle on their own. Back in the arena, Catherine continues her relentless assault. She strikes and Sang-yu dodges each time. But her attacks are quite bothersome. Even when Sang-haeon jumps into the air, the fireballs still follow him. The only way for him to escape is to slice through each fireball. A dance in the flames causes his cloak to catch fire. Sang-haeon quickly lands to avoid the flames, but without the wind's favor, he can't maximize the cloak's effects. While he's busy putting out the fire on his cloak, Catherine summons 4 more fireballs. "How long do you think you can endure this, huh?" Sang-hun finishes dousing the fire and swings his sword. The longer it drags on, the greater the mana consumption, which is a disadvantage for him. It's time to counterattack. Sang-hyun absorbs the soul of Baeksan H to boost some stats, achieving B-level lightning sword energy, allowing him to unleash a deadly attack that surprises Sang-hyun. Unexpectedly, Catherine feels annoyed as Sang-hyun loses focus. During this time, she unleashes a barrage of 10 fire arrows aimed at Sang-hyun. The best strategy is to retreat. He pulls his legs up, running from the rain of arrows, slicing through any that block his path, while Sung-hyun activates his blood surge skill for the first time. But if he doesn't use it, he won't know its effects. "Just trying it out once shouldn't kill me," Sung-hyun thinks, tensing his arms for momentum. He then slashes in a crescent arc, shattering the gigantic fireball, startling Catherine. She quickly raises her magic shield, gritting her teeth to maintain it against the massive force. She never expected Sang-han's counterattack to come when she least anticipated it. Before she could finish blocking Sang-han's attack, he was already right behind Catherine. With his sword pointed directly at her neck, Catherine finally has to concede. If not, her head would be gone in an instant. After winning, Catherine receives a skill, Swordstorm, and is transported back to the common area of the 10th floor. Once back, Sang-gun decides to note down Catherine's name, even though he considers this just practice and holds back. But she's quite strong, and to top it off, she burned his cloak. He has to remember her name to collect the debt later. Now it's time to check the rewards. The name Swordstorm sounds like it could be thousands of slashes at once, but it's just a single stab. Turns out this is a lesson she prepared for him. Just because you hear the name of a skill doesn't mean you can guess what it is. Today went quite smoothly. Winning a match gained some experience, but the rewards were a bit of a scam. Not wanting to be fooled again, Sang-hyun decided to fight one more match. This time his opponent was Owaki Yuji, ranked 11th from Japan. As soon as the match started, Yuji sighed, "I've been looking forward to this match since you're ranked 3rd in Korea." But looking at him, he looked so ragged like a beggar. His skills must be just as poor. Sang-hyun smirked, causing Yuji to frown. "What are you laughing at?" He found it amusing because they shared the same thoughts. Sang-hyun's retort made Yuji furious. He thrust his 8-meter spear at Sang-hyun, who easily dodged it, leaving Yuji disappointed. "Is this the 11th rank from Japan so weak? Just dress nicely." Sang-hyun swiftly knocked the show-off aside. Yuji took too much damage, so the match had to end. Of course, victory belonged to Sang-hyun. The more he fought, the more addicted he became. Sang-hyun challenged him, winning every match at an incredible speed. This led him to accidentally earn the title of Master Fighter. Meanwhile, in China, an 8-pack guy was meditating in the lush green bamboo forest, and no one dared to disturb him unless there was urgent news. And this urgent news was the passing of Elder Bitch-san. Before he died, he sent a message to the Cho clan about a place called Earth that had connected with their dimension. Recently, Bitch-san had attempted to infiltrate that dimension, and the result was a total failure. A tremor with increasing intensity shook the bamboo forest as if something was rushing towards it, a monster whose name I don't even know. All I know is that it was huge, monstrous, and had a bad temper. The young man continued to meditate, meeting his targets while the monster charged at him. Finally, he moved one arm to summon his sword. "It's been 5 years since I stopped climbing the tower," he said just as the monster's claws came crashing down. He used his legs to leap up. Even after meditating all day, he wasn't numb in the legs, truly admirable. The 8-pack guy dove down, driving his sword straight into the monster's head, and the weight caused it to collapse instantly. The onlookers couldn't contain their awe at his strength. One strike was enough to overpower such a mythical creature. It truly was terrifying. The young man pulled the sword out of its head. He was tired of meditating. Just then, a portal to the Earth dimension appeared, piquing his interest. Anyone who could kill Elder Big Sun would surely give him a satisfying battle. Sang-hyun returned to the waiting room and flopped down onto the newly upgraded bed with a mattress. All his fatigue vanished. It truly deserved to be called a healing room. Today was indeed a fruitful day. Besides gaining experience, Sang-hyun also acquired a new practical skill, creating steel wings that allowed him to fly at high speed. However, these wings needed continuous mana to function. Just imagining himself soaring through the sky with angelic wings like the fairies in fairy tales made him ecstatic. But that was just a dream for him. He had to wait until he had enough points to buy it for that dream to come true. Only in moments like this do you realize how lucky the rich really are. Setting aside the issue of the wings, Sang-hee sat up to summarize today's achievements, compiling a few random skills together. He sat there for a whole hour, diligently piecing things together, and created 3 new skills: a B-level counter shield, a C-level stealth movement skill, and a C-level chaotic sword attack skill. What caught his attention was the counter shield. Sung-hyun raised his hand to test the effect, which looked cooler and smoother than the lame skills of the supporting characters. Truly, the main character's aura is something else. A new day began with a mission on the 10th floor with a light difficulty level and a theme of cooperation over 3 hours. The completion condition was to prevent the resurrection of the Dark Overlord within the time limit. If the entire team was wiped out before time was up, then they would all be done for. 4 doors open, summoning designated members based on individual rankings: 1st place Kim Seung-hoon, 2nd place Oh Chun-seok, and 3rd place Hanger. But only we know his real name is Sang-hyun, and 6th place Princess Sudi. The team had 30 minutes of extension to prepare for the boss fight. John Seok ran towards Seung-hoon with a face that said they hadn't seen each other in a long time. Sung-hoon assessed that the 2 above him in rank must have met before during previous trials. Suddenly, a shout broke out. Sudi pointed at Sung-yoon and yelled, "You're the guy I met on the 4th floor." Sung-yoon had a sky full of question marks. How could this happen? Sung-hoon looked at Sudi's expression and guessed that the meeting between the two hadn't gone smoothly. The studio guy was trembling with a pale face. He said the 2 had met during a cooperative trial on the 4th floor, and there, Sang-jeon had continuously killed people to boost his own power. Princess Sudi's real name is Seung-jun, and his life motto is to never lie, life doesn't care. He deliberately created conflicts by putting others in opposition to each other, then used that time to monopolize the rewards. That was his survival strategy. And it really worked in a harsh environment like the trial tower. His administrator was a cunning clown who laughed loudly every time Sudi pulled off another trick. Deceiving and selling people off to Cambodia, Sang-yu looked at his chilling expression as if he were mentally unstable, but seeing that attitude made him think he himself had done that in the past. "I think you've misunderstood something," Sung-hyun spoke up, but Sudi interrupted him. "You even had the heart to turn on your teammates to monopolize the rewards." Sang-hoon felt annoyed. But the one choosing violence wasn't him. It was Seung-hoon. He summoned the divine hammer, thinking that instead of having 4 people in disarray, this team should only have 3 who understood each other. Who's speaking the truth? The liar will be eliminated on the spot, Seung-hoon, who only liked simple things, said. Sang-hoon calculated the worst-case scenario: he would have to fight these 3 at once. But of course he didn't want that. Everyone chill out, Yoseok said. So far, he was the only one keeping a cool head to analyze the situation. If Sudi had met Sanjeon on the 4th floor, he must know his real name, because from the waiting room on the 5th floor, nicknames were only applied after that. Since the two met on the 4th floor, if he just said Sanjin's real name, everything would be resolved. Suri was stunned. She didn't expect someone to be so clever. But he wasn't someone easily confused. He only liked to make others puzzled. His real name was Lee Chun-min. Suri thought to herself, sneering, "What are you doing here? Is there any way to verify your name, Lee Chun-min?" "Do you have anything to say?" John Seok turned to Sang-hyun. Indeed, there was no ID to prove his identity here, but he had something else he didn't want to use his hunter's license. Sanjeon just happened to hold it when he returned to Earth, and who would have thought it would come into play in such a messed-up situation? Sudi couldn't believe it either. Someone brought a hunter's license from Earth into the tower to prove their identity. His deception had been exposed. Seung-hoon had been waiting for this moment to take action and serve justice. To eliminate the liar and restore purity to Sanjin. Sudi gritted his teeth, thinking, "I messed up this time." Sang-hoon raised his hand to stop Seung-hoon because this was his matter and he would handle it himself. Being falsely accused made him feel annoyed. Get rid of the liar and restore purity. Sanjeon Sudi gritted his teeth, thinking to himself that he really messed up this time. Sang-hoon raised his hand to stop Seung-hoon, saying this is his issue, so he would handle it himself, feeling frustrated by the false accusations. Sudi thought all three would gang up on him, but in the end only Sang-hoon stepped up, smirking at him, calling him a fool as long as he could take down Sung-yun. The other two wouldn't be able to do anything to him, even if they hated him, because it was too hard for two people to overcome a trial meant for four. Before the fight, Sung-hyun taught him about 2 words responsibility, but Sudi didn't care about what responsibility meant at all because he was only focused on survival. He summoned a spell book saying, "You're not the only one with power," as the swamp spirit vines wrapped around Sung-hyun's legs, but unfortunately he had mana-resistant skills. So he managed to escape the vines and charged towards him. Sudi raised a shield. This situation was truly unexpected. But he could defend against Sung-hyun's attack. His power caused the ground to crack. Seung-hoon warned him to keep his distance from them. If you don't want to get caught up, even though Seok wants to get closer to feel the heat of the young guy, Seung-hoon says it's better to be careful than to die like that jerk Sudi. He throws mana balls at Sung-yun, claiming this game is too easy because he dodges each one, then punches Sudi hard. Even though it hurts, he still grins widely. It seems like the hunter has turned into the prey right. When Sung-hyun looks back, the balls he shot have gathered into a magic circle after a few seconds of aiming. It unleashes a huge bolt of lightning straight at Sung-hyun, and Sudi smirks, saying, "You were showing off earlier, but now look at you." Suddenly, he seems confused. Sang-hyun tells him he's still too inexperienced. Aiming to defeat the top 3 while being in the top 6 is a tall order, especially with the main character's aura. He activates a counter shield that absorbs 25% of the damage and releases it in a single blow. Now Sudi will have to face the consequences of what he just dealt out. It's just the way of life. Sudi is sweating. This is beyond his imagined script, and he can't believe it. Sang-hyun blocks his 3rd move again, charging like an arrow towards Sudi. He can only erect massive stone shields around Sang-hyun, trapping him. Sang-hyun slices through the rock walls. If he can cut through fire, this is nothing. John Seok observes Sung-hyun and asks if he knows who he is. But Seung-hyun doesn't know. He's never seen anyone like him among the high-ranking hunters. Because Seung-hyun doesn't know, John Seok thinks Sung-hyun is just an ordinary guy. Until they observe how he fights, Seung-hyun realizes he may not rank among the high-level hunters, but one thing he is sure of is that Sung-hyun hasn't shown his full strength yet. In fact, Sung-hyun's power might be on par with his own. John, the CEO, is surprised that someone so strong has a lower rank than the two of them, but that's just based on stats. If earlier in the trials, Seung-hyun hadn't relied on his teammates, he might have been underestimated compared to his actual strength. At this moment, Sudi has no way to defend himself. As Sung-hyun slices down his arm while reading, he collapses before Sung-hyun's sword. Seung-hyun is surprised that he doesn't finish him off, but instead keeps him subdued with great calmness. Wait. Sudi, pale-faced, threatens him. "You can't kill me." Because if he kills him, he won't be able to pass this level of the trial. The challenge consists of 4 people ranked first with the goal of survival, so the tower won't make it easy enough for them to pass even if one person is missing. Sang-hyun hasn't considered that scenario yet. So he turns back to look at the other 2 who say they won't intervene and will let him handle it as he sees fit. Sudi pulls out a sword, preparing to ambush Sang-hyun, but his speed is 1,000,000 times slower than Sung-hyun's, who slices Sudi's head in half with one strike. But no blood spills because it's just an illusion. Sudi intended to hide his trump card. However, he gets sliced by Sang-heon, so now all he can do is risk it. Sudi shoots chains towards Sang-heon, who uses his counter-shield as the chains wrap around him and circle behind. Sang-hyun activates his skill to glide over the water, moving like a wave, increasing his speed by 40%. Just as Sudi's attack explodes, he stands right in front of him with the counter-shield. Compared to having only 3 people in the trial, being accompanied by a fake like him is much more dangerous. Seung-hun activates his counter-skill, returning all the damage he's accumulated since the start of the match. He sends it all back to Sudi, who just disappears, leaving behind a golden leaf. He leaves behind an old cloak of a vampire count and a celestial blood demon sword. Both items are of lower rank than what he's currently using, so Sung-hyun will take them back for research later. The other 2 jump down after observing. John Seok continuously praises him with admiring eyes. Everything that happened in the last 20 minutes. Now they have 10 minutes left to assess the situation inside. All right, let's go. Seung-hun leads the group inside. At the entrance, there's a gigantic, magnificent stone knight statue on horseback, but there are chains fixed around it. As they walk and talk, he says, "This statue is huge. It probably won't come to life, right?" "Inside this tower, it could be possible." Seung-hun replies while Sang-hyun quietly observes. He noticed the crowned head that the knight brought along after wandering through the grand palace, and they arrived at a vast hall surrounded by 3 other stone statues tightly bound by chains. The most ominous feeling was from the headless statue sitting on the throne, likely the Dark Tyrant boss of this trial. Time was up. The Dark Army would appear, and they needed to prevent the resurrection of the Dark Tyrant, just as the buried snail feared. The 3 statues broke free from their chains and awakened the rotting corpse, just waiting for someone to fight. It had been a while since he had moved his joints, as the head said he had been observing for some time. Each statue carried a crowned head on its back, and they couldn't let them place that head and complete the body of the tyrant. The rotting corpse nodded. If that's the case, they would have to face these 3 statues one-on-one. The battle between the 3 stone knight statues and the top 3 servers in the tower. Who should we bet on? Sang-hyun decided to take down this stone statue in one strike with his sword energy. Before that, he had to clash with it, and when their swords met, he realized it was also using sword energy. It seemed this time the opponent was no pushover. He wondered if the others were okay. The rotting corpse had just taken a hit and was soaring through the air. The knight seized the opportunity to charge like a bullet weighing several tons towards the tyrant, but the rotting corpse wouldn't let it succeed. He hurled a rock straight at it. By the time the Niet realized, he had already been hit by the rock and was sent flying. The rotting corpse cursed, "These bastards are all at boss level. Don't let your guard down. I think the only one who's careless is you. Heh heh." The buried snail laughed and put on a wizard hat. He really couldn't stand that hat. But once he put that hat on, it meant the buried snail was getting serious. He shot a magical arrow straight at the charging stone knight. Though made of stone, it still nimbly dodged 3 arrows and approached the buried snail. He wasn't panicking like ordinary wizards. Everyone thought fighting a wizard meant close combat was the easiest way to win, but that only applied to rookie wizards. As for John the CEO, he was a physical wizard. He transformed his bow into his scythe, surprising Sang-hyun, who was used to playing with weaklings like snails. So seeing 2 people with such strength made him excited. Now Sang-hyun could confidently carry out his mission, but first he needed to dodge its attack. Sang-hyun spun around in the rubble using his 3-meter-long legs to kick stones at the stone statue, then activated his skill to glide like the wind, slipping between the statue's legs to its back. Catching it off guard, he combined his chaotic sword skills with lightning sword strikes, shattering the head of the Dark Tyrant on the back of the stone knight on the other side. The rotting corpse used lightning to counter the knight in a thunderstorm, and the head behind it shattered into pieces, leaving only one on the side of the buried snail. Never underestimate a son who is a wizard, because he can unleash physical attacks just as well as anyone else. With his scythe, he cleaved the knight in 2. Suddenly, the statues began to roar and ran towards the gate. It seemed they were fleeing, so the 3 chased after them. Without the head, the Dark Tyrant had to sleep again. Suddenly, Sang-hyun heard a clattering sound, and the stone statues knelt down, forming a straight line. The sound of hooves leapt over the line they formed, and above them was the knight riding outside the gate. The rotting corpse made a 360-degree turn to chase it. But it was too late to catch up, because it was riding a horse while they were just running on 2 legs. Sang-hyun gritted his teeth, gaining momentum to launch his sword at it. The head of the tyrant was about to be placed down in an instant. Suddenly, the sword of Sung-hyun pierced it into pieces, and the crown fell down before the astonished knight. Its eyes turned fiery red, followed by a roar of anger and frustration. The buried snail jumped up in joy, and Sung-hyun breathed a sigh of relief. He almost had to fight the boss. The knight picked up the crown and placed it on his head. Then he held his weapon and pierced through the throat, leaving all three stunned, not understanding what was happening. What they now knew was that they had to stop it quickly. The knight was about to detach its head to place it on the dark tyrant's body. The three charged in to attack, but the head was successfully placed down, resulting in a massive explosion that sent them flying. The necessary condition had been met. The dark tyrant was being resurrected. Now their mission was to take it down if they didn't want to sacrifice themselves. The Dark Berserker possesses an invulnerable ability that nullifies all damage from challengers with lower stats, and Sang-hyun had never heard of a monster with such a special skill. It was truly the boss of the cavalry, just like the Dark Berserker raised its hand to summon a sword, striking down with a blow that cracked the ground, a monstrous ability that left Sang-hyun in awe. I don't know what to do. If damage is negated, what can they even do? While he was deep in thought, the Dark Berserker appeared behind him out of nowhere and swung its weapon in a wide arc. Sang-hyun accelerated but still took damage, blood spraying out. Fortunately, he could heal himself. Everything was becoming a hassle since they couldn't resolve it quickly. Was there really no way to win? His gaze fell on the three remaining knights lined up waiting to be taken down. Jeon-seok and Sung-hun rushed over to him thinking they should deal with the knights first. If not, they would exhaust themselves. Sang-hyun made a request for them to block the Dark Berserker's attack, but Sung-hun was confused. They couldn't deal damage to it. Wouldn't it be more reasonable to just take care of those knights? Sang-hyun didn't know how to convince them, so he could only say that he knew a way to defeat the Dark Berserker. Sung-hun fell silent for a few seconds before deciding to trust him and the two others. It would be quite difficult for them to hold the Berserker back, so Sang-hyun had to hurry if he didn't want to see two more corpses after they left. Now was the time for Sang-hyun to deal with these three knights. Seong-hun activated Thunder Wrap, aiming at the Dark Berserker, but of course it didn't take any damage at all. Just as Seong-hun expected, it had no effect, even causing the Berserker to activate another special skill, both of them being crushed as if the weight of the entire earth was pressing down on them. Then came a slash from the Berserker. Seong-hun activated his mana resistance skill, successfully escaping its control, but Jeon-seok did not. At that moment, Seong-hun shielded him, taking the blow. Blood dripped from inside Seong-hun's mask, and he collapsed. "Are you okay?" Jeon-seok supported Seong-hun in a desperate worry, as standing before them was the Dark Berserker raising its sword high, ready to cleave them in two. This was the perfect moment for Sang-hyun to appear. He used the counter-shield to block the sword and apologized to his two teammates for being late. Sang-hyun absorbed the souls of the knights. His stats began to rise rapidly now, on par with the Dark Berserker. The counter-shield absorbed and returned the blow to the Berserker, forcing it to retract its sword. Sang-hyun used Thunder Sword energy to slash in a crescent arc, hoping it would be enough to reach the heart of the Dark Berserker. The Berserker used both hands to block the attack, which, despite its high damage, only caused a slight crack in its hands. But at least it had an effect. The Dark Berserker screamed in rage and activated its special skill, controlling Sang-hyun and immediately pinning him down. Sang-hyun activated mana resistance and powerfully broke free step by step. All limitations had been lifted. He used the counter-shield to defend himself. This situation was truly hanging by a thread. But Sang-hyun couldn't stop laughing. Was this the feeling of victory? Was it the burning desire to become stronger? Out there, Jeon-seok and Seong-hun were observing the battle. What they saw in Sang-hyun was a monster. Seong-hun also felt strange having to hide behind someone, but he felt happy for Sang-hyun for becoming the top player. After a while, the counter-shield had absorbed enough damage. Now it was time for Sang-hyun to return what it had given him. If he reduced the attack distance and focused his energy, the power of the shield would increase significantly. He tried to get as close as possible and unleashed his attack. Piercing through the arm of the Dark Berserker, it was still in shock from losing an arm when Sang-hyun charged in. All skills were fully charged, and he sliced off its head in one swift motion. The Dark Berserker was defeated, mission accomplished on this side. The Dark Executioner completed the mission on this side. The Blood King was watching Sung-hyun with unexpected delight, unable to believe that such a capable challenger had made a pact with her while ordinary challengers struggled to climb. They prepared meticulously to ascend the tower to avoid risks, and after spending half their youth, they still hadn't completed a single floor, but Sang-hyun was completely different. He even came from another dimension, but was considered the embodiment of the desire for growth. However, this wasn't entirely beneficial for her. Surely other administrators were also intrigued by Sang-hyun. She needed to secure his support before any other administrator could. Pay attention to that. She could achieve the wish she had longed for after defeating the Dark Tyrant, and Sung-hyun received a heap of rewards for being the top contributor to the mission. In particular, Chuok was utterly amazed by his victory. Sung-hyun's performance was nothing short of a hacker claiming he had just gotten lucky, because he possessed a skill quite useful for this mission. How could it be said that it was because he was the main character? Seung-hun didn't care how he did it. He only knew that today he had his eyes opened, so he decided to send a friend request to San-jeon after the match. The three friends returned to the waiting room after this trial with over 1,000 survivors. A new category was open called Dimension Travel, Sung-hyun guessed. Perhaps it would help him move to places like the martial arts world or Ares, but that would be like committing suicide. Moreover, there were a few skills expanded, and Sung-hyun could now communicate with the administrators in the waiting room and head to their territory additionally. Sang-hoon could also establish additional pacts, but could only do so with one administrator and could terminate it at any time. He found it confusing because if that were the case, then the administrators would be the ones at a disadvantage. But nothing could be predicted in this tower. For now, he would sort through the items he received today. First was a potion that increased skill proficiency, helping him boost the proficiency of a skill by up to 20%. Sang-hyun, feeling thirsty, drank it all in one go. Then it increased the proficiency for the special skill of Wind Grace. After adding another 20%, this skill leveled up and had a stacking effect of 7 times, and the cooldown disappeared. This allowed him to glide across the ground as fast as the wind. Next was absorbing the soul of the Dark Tyrant, permanently increasing stats and receiving a special skill called Mana Application. Thanks to this skill, the limitations related to Mana Application would be removed, but its proficiency would only increase through personal enlightenment. Frequency of use wouldn't help. In short, now Sang-hyun was a magical genius, but just reading the information, he couldn't imagine how it worked. Suddenly, 2 invitations popped up before him. Both the Blood King and the White Crane Swordsman invited him to their territories. Sang-hyun was very surprised by the sudden invitations, but decided to go to the Blood King's domain. The Blood King had just finished bathing, opened the door, and laughed heartily. "Haha, I knew you would come to me!" It turned out they had bet on which of them Sang-hyun would visit. The Blood King won the bet and would reward him with some snacks to kill time. Sang-hyun sighed. He had felt uneasy since the moment they both sent the invitations. It turned out he was just their joke as he entered the house. San-jeon asked the Blood King about Mana Application. She was a bit surprised that he had acquired such a wonderful skill. After all, having a good skill without knowing how to use it was pointless. She was so excited that she decided to briefly explain to him about her mana manipulation skills, asking him to try channeling all the magical power in his body and focus all his strength. Suddenly, he felt a surge throughout his body as if a high-voltage current was running through his mana circuit, which was being greatly enhanced by that skill. The mana circuit skill was also enhanced, making him feel like his physical strength had increased exponentially. Sang-hyun tried punching the ground to test his strength. The white snow around him was blown away by such a strong gust of wind that it even swept the towel off the Blood King's body into her house, and she still hadn't poked fun at him unexpectedly. "You're the one who dares to do such unethical things, huh?" Sang-hyun charged the water, and indeed, if others weren't worried, he felt a bit uneasy. After all, the Blood King advised him to try activating each magical skill whenever he had free time. Combining it with mana manipulation, once he understood how to enhance mana usage, it would lead to the leveling up of his other magical skills as well. Sang-hyun nodded. He was curious why today she called him to explain the mechanism of the waiting room expansion on the 11th floor, which he could access without going through the tower. But that wasn't the reason the waiting room was expanded. The real motive was so that the administrators could actively train their challengers, and what that meant was clear. The Blood King ordered the use of the intervention field and gifted him a special skill called Blood Sword. Sang-hyun was surprised to suddenly receive a free special skill. But in this world, nothing comes for free. The Blood King had dedicated enough time to the tower to earn this privilege. The reason she chose him was because she saw potential in Sang-hyun. The administrators were rewarded by nurturing their challengers, but their intentions weren't positive. They only invested in challengers because of each person's ultimate wish. Sang-hyun didn't even understand what the ultimate wish was when the system exploded with notifications because the White Crane Swordmaster was continuously requesting him to visit his domain. The Blood King laughed, guessing that someone was getting impatient, so their conversation came to an end. Anyway, she had already given him her special skill. Sang-hyun said goodbye to her and entered a forest in the domain of the White Crane Swordmaster. He thought this was indeed a perfect place to train, and he was quite curious. About the training methods that the Blood King had mentioned, he would try them out here. Sang-hoon used the 3 slashes combined with mana manipulation, and his proficiency increased by 8%. He continued to enhance his other skills, including counter shield and finally the sword energy. But it didn't activate through mana manipulation, leaving him feeling disappointed. He had intended to level up the 3 slashes through sword energy, but no matter how many times he tried, it was the same. Could it be that since sword energy was a special skill, he couldn't level it up at this moment? The White Crane Sword Master sent another message urging him to hurry up, so Sang-hyun had to save the sword energy for next time and head over to his place, listening to the nickname and how the White Crane Sword Master spoke. Sang-hyun guessed it was an old man with gray hair like Big Sun H. When this young man woke up, he found himself free-falling somewhere. He was suspended in mid-air, reading the notification that the trial tower had selected suitable candidates from Earth, and the trial tower requested Han Sung-gun to choose the difficulty level of the challenge. He had no idea what would happen, but at this point, only going all in would make him legendary. Sung-gun confidently chose the highest difficulty level right then. He was transported to the first floor of the tower to carry out the mission, where he stood in a desert, the second version of the Sahara. Han Sung-gun was equipped with a sword. It was so shabby that it didn't even have a sheath, but the reward was incredibly generous, a unique trait that Han Sung-gun had struggled for 7 years to obtain. Han Sung-gun was excited. If this were a trivia game with rewards, he was ready to go all out. First, Han Sung-gun had to get the item, which was that sword for self-defense. But because he was too busy standing there contemplating, he ran out of preparation time, and a wild dog jumped out from the bottom of society, leaving the main character stunned. This was the price he paid for confidently choosing the hardest difficulty in the game, even though he only needed to survive for 10 minutes. But for a loser like him, it's a whole 15, and if he fails, the gates of hell will swing wide open to welcome Han Sung-gun. Now this quiz game has turned into a survival game. One-way ticket, no return for the main character, Han Sung-gun, who grabs the sword and runs like crazy. The best plan is to run away, but in this case, running away is the dumbest plan when one step of the giant is worth 10 of his. Moreover, Han Sung-gun is wearing long sleeves running in the desert, and soon he will see the familiar oasis ahead. Enough! With just a lousy sword against a stone giant, he can either run away and die from exhaustion or fight and get crushed. Han Sung-gun can only bury his head and run in fear. The mocking words of everyone echo in his ears, "You're nothing in this world." In the eyes of the main character, the giant looks like a colossal version of that old director. As it tramples him like a bug, Han Sung-gun grits his teeth in frustration. He is determined not to suffer the same humiliation as when he lay under the trash at that man's house. Over the past 7 years, he hasn't been just an average student. Theoretically, he knows everything about the giant monsters. He just needs to destroy their energy core to take them down. It sounds simple, but the energy core is always placed in hard-to-reach spots, and the giant is 10 times taller than him. Luckily, right in front of Han Sung-gun is a hill. He decides to climb up there to match the height with the giant. Once on top, Han Sung-gun gathers all his strength and jumps onto the golem, the bright red energy core right in front of him. It seems to beckon him, "Go ahead, strike." So he swings with all his might, aiming right at what looks like the heart of the golem, but the next moment his whole body shakes as his strike only leaves a scratch. The golem, hit in a sensitive spot, roars in anger. Han Sung-gun tries to strike again, but is grabbed by the giant and thrown into the air by its solid stone hand. Facing the giant, Han Sung-gun hears the words he has endured for years. "You're a foolish failure," amidst that humiliation. Han Sung-gun shouts, "Shut up, you bastards," in anger, and he hurls his sword at the golem, luckily hitting the spot he just struck. A blinding red light bursts forth along with the golem's roar. The system announces that the energy core of the golem has been destroyed, meaning Han Sung-gun has completed his mission. The golem disappears, and he falls into the sand. Although he has succeeded, Han Sung-gun's body is not intact. However, for the first time, he feels proud to have defeated a monster and has more faith in his hunting career. Just as promised, the system grants Han Sung-gun a unique ability called Soul Capture. At that moment, a strange black bone appears where the golem fell. Han Sung-gun curiously touches the bones. The system asks if he wants to absorb the soul of the sand golem. As soon as he agrees, the soul immediately enters Han Sung-gun. This is the soul capture ability the system has given him. Upon absorbing the soul of the sand golem, his proficiency increases by 7%. Though it's a small number, he feels an unusual thrill. The main character's first time seems challenging. Suddenly, a spark like a ghost enters his chest. Sung-gun can sense the soul when he closes his eyes and breathes. Moreover, if he absorbs the stats of the soul, it can permanently boost his stats. At the same time, his stats have increased a tiny bit, but he feels a connection with some beauty queen. As life turns a new page, this is the exhilarating feeling after 7 years of hard training for the main character. After enduring all the petty gossip, he confidently returns to his hunting path. A spatial portal opens after the system grants him his reward. Han Sung-gun swallows hard. He knows he can't escape from here, so he decides to go along with the system's upgrade. He thought he would be transported smoothly, like riding an elevator, but the system throws him like a sack of potatoes. Sung-gun lands on the ground, aching all over, covered in blood. The wounds worsen, and just when he thinks he's exhausted from injuries, all his wounds disappear and he feels revitalized as if he never experienced a separation. It turns out that after the trial, the waiting room heals for free. In the 300-square-meter room, there's only a single bed big enough for him to lie down, but it's enough for him to rest. It turned out that after the trial, the waiting room would heal for free. In the 300-square-meter room, there was only a single bed enough for him to lie down, but that was enough for him to rest. Ha Young-gun wondered why he was the chosen one. Was he the main character in some Canadian fantasy comic? It seemed like the system could read his thoughts. The guide provided 5 commands for new players, but Sung-gun reminded himself that he needed to survive first. He knew there would be a next trial, but he didn't expect the second floor to open just 24 hours later. Sung-gun was curious about the flood of complaints from those dragged to the tower. The comments section was filled with drama, and the admin joined the chat to announce the tower's rules, stating that points were used like currency. But the most important thing was that water here wasn't free like on Earth. Sung-gun imagined himself dying of thirst before being taken down by some monster in the desert. The more troubling issue was that he thought he could go back, but now Sung-gun was trapped in this survival tower. All he had was a lousy sword without a sheath. So to survive, Sung-gun equipped himself with additional weapons for the next trial. Every hunter entering the tower would lose all their stats, but Sung-gun couldn't afford to underestimate it. He practiced diligently for the next hunt, even though the waiting room could heal him. But it couldn't cure hunger. After a whole day of training, his stomach protested, but he had spent all his money on hunting gear. If you want to eat, you have to work. Sung-gun was determined that this trial had to succeed. He needed to earn money to buy food. A portal opened, and unlike the first floor, the second was an endless grassy forest. Ha Young-gun breathed in the fresh open air. After escaping the stuffy waiting room, he realized this was just the calm before the storm. Because his mission this time was to assassinate the ogre chief within a time limit. Beneath Sung-gun's feet was the genuine ogre village where the muscular green giants waited to tear humans apart. That's why Han Sung-gun was now hiding nervously watching the guards. He guessed that these ogres also had hunters, as the textbook said. They not only had quality, but also numbers. To defeat the entire ogre village, at least an elite team was needed. Feeling hopeless, Sung-gun decided to sneak away quietly. But looking at the dry grass around him, Sung-gun came up with a plan. With a sly smile, he crafted a torch and successfully stored it in the system's inventory. Based on his 7 years of theory at the Polytechnic, Sung-gun figured that the ogres seemed lazy but were actually quite diligent. The hunters would go out in the morning and return at night. That was the only time he could avoid the high-level ogres, as the village was merely a place to eat and sleep. Sometimes there were no guards around. He decided to set fire around the village to attract the goblins while giving himself time to escape if the hunters returned. To become stronger, Sung-gun planned to absorb some of their souls. He quietly approached a small ogre and stabbed it through the neck. With one strike, he took down the little ogre, absorbing its soul and increasing his proficiency to 9%. But the mother ogre heard her child scream and suddenly appeared behind Sung-gun, delivering a powerful blow aimed straight at his head. Luckily, he had bought a shield to defend himself. At that moment, Sung-gun quickly used the little ogre's soul to boost his strength. Thanks to that, he unleashed a powerful blast, finishing off the mother ogre. After absorbing enough souls, he began searching for the ogre chief. Only 4 guards remained, and he easily took them down one by one. However, among them, there was one that was quicker than the others. It exploited a blind spot to attack Sung-gun, catching him off guard. Even though he was ambushed, this was the last guard protecting the chief. Sung-gun was determined to charge through its body with a fatal blow. The chief didn't gain power for nothing. It used its staff to unleash fiery flames. Sung-gun was confident he would win, believing he could handle that one attack. But it didn't know he had the aura of a main character protecting him. Still, Sung-gun was heavily injured after that explosion. At the same time, he gained the fire-resistant skill. With this skill, he wouldn't fear any ogre. Sung-gun gritted his teeth and declared, "You're dead for sure." The chief panicked and continued to breathe fire for protection, but with Gun's fire resistance skills, he easily overcame it and chopped off its hands. Without hands, it couldn't hold anything. Just as he was about to dance around, the chief, terrified, ran into his hut. Han Gun gritted his teeth in annoyance as he stepped into the thatched hut. He decisively sliced through the fabric, but the scene before him surprised him. Although the chief's arms were no longer intact, he still held his two terrified children close. One child trembled and clung to his leg, pleading with tear-filled eyes. Suddenly, Gun fell silent. This situation reminded him of his own lost family. He thought he would soften, but no. Gun ended the creature beneath his feet. Even if he turned into a ghost, he could never forget that the ones who killed his family were those monsters, and he would definitely eliminate them all. Thus, Gun successfully passed the second challenge. He returned with the wooden shield now full of cuts. This time, he nearly lost his life according to the community's information. He knew the tower provided question tickets for players who would look up information from there and share it in the chat room. That was how he found his way back to Earth. After passing the 5th floor, he would sell stones to return but only to Earth for a few days and some other gossip. Gun was pulling his hair out as he could only use soul skills in the tower. If he had them, he would have become a super hunter on Earth by now. Putting aside the negatives, Gun focused on absorbing the souls he had gained today to become even stronger. Suddenly, his power surged, making him hyperactive. He dashed like the Flash, even running around the walls. This power excited Gun to the point where he couldn't control himself. He charged straight into a wall. After getting money, the main character opened Shopee to buy items. This time, the items were fancier, and he looked more dapper than before. After 24 hours, the 3rd floor opened again, this time for a duel. Gun stood in the cave, dazed, but the system's announcement made him alert. The opponent was the Dark Guard, meaning they could come from anywhere. He immediately took a defensive stance, ready, as everything was silent after the announcement. But Gun saw no sign of any knight. Suddenly, a shadow behind him moved and slashed horizontally at his stomach. It laughed triumphantly after a surprise appearance. That was the Dark Guard Doppler Ranger, a formidable opponent with tricky moves. Gun gritted his teeth and retaliated. At the same time, he created distance to avoid being ambushed by the doppelganger. Gun activated his mind recovery skill, realizing that the doppelganger was mimicking his stance. To be sure, Gun charged in to attack and assess him. Midway, he swerved and jumped behind the Doppler Ranger, then slashed through him. The wound gradually healed. The twisted appearance of the Doppler Ranger sent chills down the spine of anyone facing him. After recovering, he lunged to attack. Gun also maneuvered behind and struck, kicking him before the Doppler Ranger could slash. Luckily, he had predicted that he would mimic him. Now he understood why it was called the Dark Guard. Gun used his own weaknesses to counter him. Indeed, the plan worked. Gun felt confident about winning, but suddenly the doppelganger's power surged, catching him off guard for a brief moment. But he had mastered Gun's movements better than Gun himself. He quickly overwhelmed the main character. With only 1 minute left, Gun decided to try to finish him off. He activated his movement speed from the assassin's cloak, darting quickly toward the doppelganger, catching him off guard and successfully striking him. Gun silently rejoiced, thinking he had succeeded. Suddenly, the doppelganger's arm stretched out easily, slicing off Gun's sword arm. Fresh blood gushed out with his agonizing scream. He was gradually running out of strength, but his rational mind still encouraged him to keep trying. At least his last attack had affected the doppelganger, who was also exhausted and motionless. Gun realized this was his only chance to defeat him. But his arm and sword had flown off somewhere. Only 11 seconds remained. Regardless of failure, he would die. Gun was determined to take a risk. He used all his strength to run toward the doppelganger. The doppelganger was surprised but couldn't move. Gun shouted and pushed him with his shield, sending him flying. The doppelganger was hurled and crashed into the surrounding rocks. His body was covered in wounds as he writhed in pain on the ground, his eyes wide open, glaring at the person about to end his life. Sung Gun struggled to crawl over to him. Gaining momentum, he brought his left arm down hard right on the top of the guy's head, blood splattering as the doppelganger's head flew off. Sung Gun successfully passed the 3rd trial. Back in the waiting room, Sung Gun's arm had fully healed, giving him a strange yet familiar feeling. He tried punching the wall with his right hand, which immediately cracked under his strength. Sung Gun smiled in satisfaction. This arm had completely restored to its original state. After absorbing the doppelganger's soul, he felt its soul density was on a whole different level. Indeed, just with its soul, he had reached 100% mastery at rank S. Leveling up to the soul skill, he read about the new ability and was surprised to find he could absorb the skills of any dead creature. Just like the healing skill he acquired when on the brink of death, gaining a new skill was no easy feat. After some research, he returned to the community of his fellow brothers trapped in the tower. Everyone was buzzing about the integrated trial on the 4th floor, which could involve team actions. He might have to act quickly against humans as the 4th floor opened up with a new mission. This time, they had to defeat the Goblin King before the other teams. Sung Gun appeared with 2 others on the magic circle, surprised to see humans again after such a long time. The girl, Lee Hyon, spoke up, breaking the awkward atmosphere, introducing herself as a rank E hunter specializing in support, while the other Lee Sung-hun was a rank D hunter focused on close combat. When it was Sung Gun's turn, he also specialized in close combat, but he wasn't just a hunter. Lee Sung-hun looked at him with disdain and said, "Just don't get in my way." Sung Gun felt a pang in his heart, but remained silent, saying, "I believe I can do my part well." Facing Sung Hun's condescending attitude, he reminded himself he was already used to it. Having been in the tower for so long, he had forgotten how much the outside world valued hunters. Even though Sung Hun felt uncomfortable, Lee Sung Hun was a rank D hunter, and his strength wasn't bad. They were a team and needed to survive as they all entered the Goblin Castle together. According to the plan, Lee Sung Gun would lead the attack, but it seemed he couldn't hold out for long, continuously cursing Sung Gun to fight faster while Sung Hun cleaned up behind. The goblins behind had all been dealt with by him, while Lee Sung-hun was still struggling with a group of goblins. He shouted to Hyon, "Where are you? Hurry and help me." Lee Hyon was having a hard time, too. She had used up all her spells, and it was time for the main character to step in. Hyon panicked. "Wait, if you leave, who will watch my back?" But when she turned to look, she gasped in shock after Sung Gun had left. Only the corpses of goblins lay scattered on the ground. Lee Sung-hun was cursing while fighting as a goblin with a spiked mace knocked his sword away. Another goblin seized the opportunity to jump in and finish him off. He was terrified, blaming Sung-hun, but the only one who could save him was the person he looked down on. Witnessing this scene, Sung-hun rubbed his eyes in confusion as he saw Sung Gun's imposing figure. He coldly said, "Lee Sung Gun, step back. You're blocking my way." With that, Sung Gun charged forward, swiftly taking out the goblins. He defeated so many that he received the Goblin Hunter achievement from the system. After eliminating the goblins, Sung Gun absorbed their souls. After absorbing enough, Sung Gun gained the Goblin Owl Eye skill, allowing him to sense and detect objects within his line of sight. Sung Gun returned to his teammates. Lee Sung Gun saw him and laughed heartily, praising him for carrying the load. His words left the other two feeling helpless as Sung Hun thanked him for his empty compliment. He then decided to lead the way with Lee Sung-hun protecting Hyon, while Hyon observed the surroundings to report back. After changing their formation, the 3 easily passed through the goblins and ventured deeper inside. But the further they went, the more they saw no sign of any goblins. Sung Gun spotted something in the distance and ran to check it out. When they arrived, they only found goblin corpses littered on the ground. This indicated that another team had gotten ahead of them. If that team defeated the boss first, Sung Gun's team would lose and face the penalty of death. Meanwhile, another team was battling the goblins. The guy confidently jumped onto the head of a creature, his face showing annoyance as he said, "These monsters are so annoying, let's find the bugs quickly." After finishing his sentence, he jumped in to easily take down the approaching goblins. One of the team members praised him, saying, "You're amazing." But instead of thanking them, he criticized his teammates. Especially Jin-hoo, who had just complimented him, was looked down upon by him. Sion sent Jin-hoo to open the door to find the bugs, and Jin-hoo cursed under his breath as he walked. However, there were 2 teams in the area, so the door couldn't be opened yet. A barrier surrounded their area, and only when one of the 2 teams survived could they approach the final bug. Besides their team, there was also Sung-gun's team. They had caught up to their pace before the decisive battle. Sung-gun instructed his team on strategy, knowing that Sion's team had arrived before them, so they were definitely not weak. Sung-gun asked Hyon to lend him a bit of strength and moved forward. Until now, he had only fought monsters, but he had enough experience. He had to win this battle. With that thought, Sung-gun actively initiated the fight against them, charging forward like an arrow, leaving Sion stunned. He quickly ordered Lee Jin-ho to use the toughest shield, creating a barrier around the 3 of them. But Sung-gun didn't back down. He swung hard, breaking Jin-hoo's shield. Jin-hoo was also thrown back after the shield shattered. Sung-gun seized the opportunity to attack, taking down 2 of Sion's teammates. Now it was a one-on-one battle between Sung-gun and Sion. No matter what attack he launched, Sion could block it all. This made Sung-gun suspicious. Sion's blocking stances were very strange. So Sung-gun tried to accelerate and add more power, even attacking from behind. Sion could still swing his sword as a reflex. Sungun was astonished as he looked at his fiery opponent. He could tell that Sion could see through every one of his sword strikes, so he just needed to obscure that line of sight. Sungun used his shield as a cover, and sure enough, Sion couldn't see his sword blade. Sungun approached and quickly finished him off with a single slash. This was a special mission assigned by the system. The battle was over, but Sungun's arm was trembling. He stood amidst the bodies of 3 people in silence. Hyon noticed this, but Sungun just replied, "I'm fine." After calming down, Sungun decided to conquer the goblin boss immediately before the other teams arrived. He easily took down the giant goblin, and this scene made him exclaim, "He's a monster!" Mission accomplished, and now it was time to say goodbye. Hyon offered some encouraging words and sent him a friend request, reminding Sungun to find her at the White Silver Guild when he returned to Earth. Sungun didn't react. This was something only he could decide now, whether or not to absorb the soul of the human. This exclusive skill of his seemed top-notch at first glance, but Sungun knew that once he killed and absorbed, he would cross a line that couldn't be undone. But ultimately, his goal was still to become stronger. Although killing wasn't his top priority, if the situation demanded it, he couldn't hold back. Sungun decided to absorb the 3 human souls and move forward in this tower. Returning to the familiar waiting room this time, the system updated the players' rankings. Sungun was surprised to find himself ranked 16th in the tower among the top 50 pioneers receiving benefits at level 8. After considering it, Sungun decided to buy a recall stone and return to Earth in 3 days. He wanted to know if he would still be the same useless guy he was before. Immediately, a space hole opened beneath Sungun's feet, and his whole body was sucked in as if melting away into the system. The system never allowed players to move normally. After the crisis, the main character lay dazed on his familiar bed, looking at the small rental room, which made Sungun feel a sense of peace. He leaned back on the soft mattress instead of the stone slab in the waiting room, but the smell of his body after a week without a shower made him grimace. In the waiting room, there was only a rectangular block to lie on, so what could he do? Sungun jumped up and was surprised to see the equipment from the tower at his feet. This meant players could bring equipment back to Earth, which made items here even more plentiful. Sungun had to sell these items quickly. Before he lost the opportunity, he needed to become a hunter to get a certification before he could trade. Sungun held his iPhone 14 Pro Max in hand and called the training center director, who felt annoyed as Sungun continued to pester him. Surprisingly, this time, Sungun Shin got to participate in the director's hunter competency assessment. It was annoying, but as long as there's money involved, it's all good. Sungun knew his obsession with money like the back of his hand. After a refreshing shower, Sungun admired himself in the mirror, feeling like he only needed to look at himself. He didn't need a girlfriend at all, but now wasn't the time for self-reflection. He got dressed and headed out for the exam, but unfortunately he couldn't catch a taxi, so he decided to parkour across the rooftops. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at the place facing the person who had looked down on him completely. Sungun was no longer insecure and weak like before. Besides the director, there was Inspector Kim, who was like a judge scoring the exam. Thanks to going through the back door, Sungun was exempt from the theory and interview. He just needed to test his skills. Sungun was led into the practice room with a sword in hand, and the director instructed the inspector to find the toughest opponents for him, giving Sungun a choice of 10 progressively difficult levels. Last time he chose level 1 and got overwhelmed by a tiny goblin. This time, after taking down an entire goblin army, he decided to go for level 10. This decision surprised the director. He started to feel irritated, cursing this crazy kid. At level 10, Sungun's opponent was a fire phoenix, which used its hunting scream to reduce his speed by 25%. Sungun's sword showed cracks the moment the phoenix let out its scream. All thanks to this friendly director. He was betting that Sungun would fail, but the sight of Sungun's determination annoyed him. However, Sungun was no longer the same person he was yesterday. With his comeback from the survival tower, he was ready to prove his strength right here. The director of the training center, Hwang Manhwa, also had a tough youth. He passed the hunter exam and thought he was the best, but in the world of hunters, talent is everything. He couldn't keep up with his peers, and that huge wall made Hwang Manhwa falter and stagnate when he met Han Sung-gun, who was in the same situation as him. But always tirelessly pursuing his passion, he found it irritating when the sword broke, wishing to see the protagonist give up the game. Sung-gun didn't think this weapon would break so easily. Unless someone intervened from above, Manho's smile gradually lost its humanity. He was confident that that lousy sword would lead to Sung-gun's failure. The Phoenix relentlessly attacked with massive lava waves. Sung Gun didn't hesitate to try out the new skin on level 4. He accelerated and jumped high to the ceiling. The Phoenix took a deep breath to unleash fire, but Sung Gun was faster, darting toward it. He used the broken sword now in 2 pieces to stab straight into the Phoenix's eye. It let out a painful roar, but the sword was too short to finish it off. Sung Gun took advantage of a floor tile and hurled it with all his might toward the Fire Phoenix using his weight and speed. The tile flew and smashed the Phoenix's head like tofu, stopping when it hit the wall between the 2 men above Hwang Manhwa. Sweating as he glanced at the tile just 5 centimeters from his head, Sung Gun had now become a sea-level hunter, allowing him to enter dungeons and sell items. In the office, Hwang Manhwa was angrily scolding the inspector, but the inspector had indeed manipulated the difficulty. He could only blame Sung Gun for being as strong as Saitama. Just then, Sung Gun walked in, pretending to inquire about the director's situation. He was annoyed, but still forced a smile to congratulate him, but Sung Gun knew his good intentions. He reminded Hwang Manhwa of the time he called him incompetent, while he himself was a sea-level hunter, meaning he was the real incompetent one. This hit a painful spot for Manhwa, making him furious. The director lunged at Sung Gun, cursing the brat, but Sung Gun easily dodged his punch. He retaliated with a punch to the stomach. This was self-defense, while the slap was revenge for what he had done to him when Sung Gun left. The inspector chased after him and offered him a position as the exclusive hunter for the association with a basic salary of 1,000,000. It could even be more. Sung Gun felt it wasn't bad. But he wasn't foolish enough not to realize that he had manipulated the difficulty of the test. Money wasn't a problem for him, he just didn't want to work with unworthy people. It's just reliable. 2 days later, the news outlets reported on the phenomenon of the Tower of Trials quickly spreading globally. Sung Gun sighed in relief because his calculations were right. He had sold everything before the Tower of Trials went viral. And now, time's up for the trial. Sung Gun shifted back to the Tower of Trials feeling more pumped than ever. Sung Gun had returned to the stone bed in the waiting room, and the items he brought from Earth were already there. He neatly stored them in his personal locker. Sung Gun stretched before heading to the 5th floor, and the system notified him that he had acquired the skill Eye of Truth. Suddenly, his eyes sparkled with a purple light. He could clearly see the essence of everything and distinguish right from wrong in words. This skill was incredibly useful, and Sung Gun felt that returning to Earth for 3 days was the right decision. With money in hand, Sung Gun went shopping, splurging on a lightning sword and a steel shield with effects. It was time for the system to transport him to the 5th floor of the challenge. This mission was to eliminate the werewolf leader in the valley within a day. The system sure knows how to pick a spot, landing him right in the middle of an aggressive pack of wolves. They immediately lunged to tear apart their prey, but they were actually the prey for Sung Gun. With his new gear, he easily knocked away the young wolves. The larger wolves appeared as their territory was invaded. They were 10 times stronger than the smaller ones, and even bit their own kind. Facing these cold-blooded beasts, Sung Gun's eyes sparkled with excitement because he didn't have to waste time searching. He charged into the midst of the fierce white wolves, using his sword to pierce through their bones decisively. After conquering the wolves, Sung Gun's sword skills increased significantly. He realized that his skills at lower levels weren't that great, so now it was time to level up. Gun leveled up like a god. As a habit, he absorbed their souls after finishing. The 10% lightning effect he gained couldn't be activated, so Sung Gun continued into the valley's center, but in front of him lay the corpses of frenzied wolves scattered everywhere. The brutal slashes had split their bodies in half, leaving marks on the rock. Now was the time to use the Eye of Truth. He could tell the slashes were made by someone with quite a skilled hand. Just then, the howl of a wolf stunned Sung Gun. He immediately accelerated towards the cave where the sound came from, and right away the massive wolf's corpse flew out at him. Covered in deep gashes, it was the wolf leader, the target of Sung Gun's mission, but it had been taken down before he arrived. At the same time, an invader from another dimension stepped out. Sung Gun's mission was to eliminate that intruder. The situation became increasingly unpredictable with more towers of trials in other dimensions. The invader, clad in fancy armor, taunted him, "Are you too scared to say anything? Looks like this is the end for you." This was indeed an unexpected incident. Sung Gun had never thought about his mission being stolen, but fortunately the trial hadn't failed yet. The intruder began to attack. Although the armor looked heavy, he moved quite nimbly. Sung Gun hadn't made a move yet. Instead, he kicked the wolf leader's corpse right in front of him. It blocked his view, and the intruder dashed behind Sung Gun, suddenly stabbing him in the back, but his sword couldn't penetrate the armor. His armor was as hard as steel, and at close range he easily launched an attack aimed at Sung Gun. The new shield he had just bought shattered, and Sung Gun was thrown back painfully. Just one blow shattered Sung Gun's left arm. He gritted his teeth, trying to withstand the surprise attack from the intruder, but Sung Gun wasn't calm at all. He gasped and shouted, "How could you invade my space?" He mocked him. "You're such a rookie, you don't even know what level you're intruding." Sung Gun felt wronged. When everything went wrong in his Tower of Trials, the intruder decided to send Sung Gun off in the gentlest way possible before his last moments. Sung Gun waved his hands urgently, saying, "Wait, I want to know more about the space invasion." A new knowledge. The intruder thought, well, you're going to be pushing up daisies anyway. So he decided to enlighten Sung Gun about the space invasion ticket, which was only available on the 8th floor. Players could use the ticket to invade others' trials. The origin space was a dimension. The space he came from was completely different from Sung Gun's. To confirm, Sung Gun decided to use the Eye of Truth. Everything he said was accurate, but he could tell that Sung Gun was scrutinizing him. This made him furious, wanting to deal with him immediately. Sung Gun coldly laughed. "What are you planning to do?" He was astonished by Sung Gun's arrogant attitude, a mere chicken daring to act tough. But Sung Gun had a trick up his sleeve. He was just clutching his arm, pretending to be in pain. Just let the intruder spill all the information. When Sung Gun released his arm, his rapid recovery skill would make it seem like there had never been a separation. Although he was caught off guard, he still felt confident he could finish Sung Gun off. But he didn't know that Sung Gun was the main character of this story. Actually, all this time, he had absorbed the soul of the wolf, and the power was continuously surging within him. The intruder was shocked to learn that Sung Gun was a swordsman with healing and enhancement abilities. With two of the most powerful skills in the game at his disposal, Sung Gun was finally serious. He accelerated himself and charged in, slashing at him repeatedly. The intruder, overwhelmed by a 5th-tier opponent, used a radiant skill on his sword to counter Sung Gun's previous attacks. The powerful blade shattered rocks and even split them in half. While Sung Gun could dodge the dangerous radiance to finish him off, he had to pierce through the intruder's fancy armor. That's why Sung Gun had been continuously building up his passive skill and then activated the lightning, sending a jolt around him that caused the intruder to convulse in pain. Sung Gun felt triumphant as his lightning pierced through the intruder's armor. The intruder fell to the ground without resistance, confused as to why a 5th tier like Sung Gun had such power. Sung Gun could only say it was because the intruder had been too overconfident in his gear and level. Now was the time to finish this. The intruder, frightened, pleaded with Sung Gun, "I'll answer any questions you have." Sung Gun coldly replied, "No need," and then his sword decisively pierced the intruder's throat. The last words he uttered were directed at Sung Gun, "You savage bastard." Sung Gun also felt a sense of fear within himself. As he continued to kill without hesitation, he knew this was something he had to do. The trial ended, and the intruder's body began to disintegrate. Sung Gun hurried to absorb it before it completely vanished. Due to the intrusion, the rewards had changed. Sung Gun received a skill upgrade to level 3 and a hefty bonus. After that, he returned to the familiar waiting room. He sat in deep thought about other dimensions now, with something else to be cautious about. To understand better, Sung Gun decided to ask the admin about the intruder levels. A response came quickly. The intruder level was only for players at level 8 and could only intrude on the first 10 levels, but could not interfere with special challenges. Sung Gun wanted to ask more, but only the first question was answered. He sighed in relief that he didn't waste a question. Now it was time to fix his gear. He had brought the magic box from Kroken. From Earth to Sung Gun's shield, it was repaired like new. The lifeless item he carried was a cleansing stone, but it made him feel high after smashing it. Using it to bathe was indeed a good idea. There was still over an hour until he entered level 6. Sung Gun took the time to check the rankings. After defeating the level 8 intruder, he had climbed to 3rd place. At this moment, the community was debating the purchase of skills to resist negative effects. The current quality board was extremely chaotic. After the level 4 mission killing had become more familiar. The level 4 disruptor was the princess who had been kicked out. Although he had changed his name, he was still being hunted down. Just a nameless guy, but he had created a wave of competition among players. Sung Gun decided to remember this name to avoid him. Before he manipulated all the players to eliminate him, the time had come for level 6 to open with the mission to capture a station within 50 minutes with his teammates. In front of Sung Gun was an endless ocean with countless stations floating on the surface. The system had assigned teammates, but Sung Gun was still alone. While he was in a daze, a spear fell from the sky right above his head. Sung Gun quickly grabbed it easily. The spear thrower was his foolish teammate. He was astonished that Sung Gun could still handle the ambush. Sung Gun was surprised by this unusual greeting. But this isn't just a greeting. He looked at you with a gaze full of hatred. Right now, on the community board, rumors are spreading that killing is the easiest way to earn rewards. Around you, the scenes of teammates slaughtering each other is horrifying. An inhumane sight with screams echoing in your ears while your teammate bursts into laughter. Now, do you understand, you hypocrite? Amidst the chaos around, these two girls shook hands like true teammates, but the reality is far from it. The short-haired girl quickly stabbed her teammate, and upon taking him down, she received a special skill called Stealth Kill. This caught Sung Gun's attention. While he was lost in thought, a teammate charged in wanting to ambush him. Sung Gun didn't want to kill without reason, but he ended up sacrificing his own life. So he picked up this task, which allowed Sung Gun to achieve a new accomplishment. Still, he didn't want to resort to mindless slaughter. His mission was to capture the point, and he just needed to do that. Over here, a water mage was conjuring a sturdy magical shield, and he was smug about his water magic and the vast ocean. He thought he was invincible. But that could only happen if he didn't encounter Sung Gun, who was now charging towards his stronghold. Sung Gun kicked the mage's magical shield. He laughed even louder, extremely confident in his bulletproof shield, but a second later that cheerful smile was replaced by a mouthful of blood. The shield could withstand bullets, but Sung Gun was the one who kicked him out. Sung Gun felt he might have gone a bit overboard, but this display frightened those around him. They scattered, not daring to fight Sung Gun. Now he just needed to guard the point for the last 10 minutes, and he learned a lesson about compassion on this 6th floor. Even if they are teammates, they can turn on you at any moment. While pondering this philosophy, a group of 4 boldly barged in. They combined 2 teams to gain an advantage over the others, and now their target was Sung Gun's stronghold. The first 2 rushed in. The black-haired mage behind activated a heart, synchronizing the skill to share Kim Ji-hyun's pain with Sung Gun as he stabbed him in the arm. He felt the pain radiating from his arm while the fat guy splashed seawater at Sung Gun, but the seawater challenge would reduce his stats. The situation seemed to be worsening for Sung Gun, but that only happened when he was a supporting character. Sung Gun dodged the large sword of the blonde guy, then grabbed his head and slammed him down to the ground, a move that stunned the other 3. Sung Gun received an achievement for a kill, along with the skill Contempt for the Weak, meaning those with lower stats couldn't do anything against him. For example, when this skill was used on the fat guy with the shield whose stats were far inferior to Sung Gun's, he ended up receiving a knee straight to the face followed by a kick from above. This brutal slaughter made the other 2 shudder as Sung Gun approached. Kim Ji-hyun, worried and unsure of what to do, was then slashed directly in the leg by the blonde guy. One slash, but both felt pain. Sung Gun forgot that the black-haired guy had shared the pain with him. Kim Ji-hyun cursed in agony, but the next moment his body was pierced by the blonde guy. Meanwhile, Sung Gun staggered from the pain that transferred to him. He used a pain reduction skill, but it only worked for 15%. The only way out was to finish off Kim Ji-hyun. Sung Gun gathered all his strength and threw his shield. It flew straight through Kim Ji-hyun's neck, the pain of the cut sending Sung Gun into excruciating agony as he collapsed, clutching his throat. Though his head was intact, the feeling was incredibly real. The blonde guy seized this opportunity to try to finish off Sung Gun, a once-in-a-lifetime chance as the blade came down. Sung Gun used both hands to block it even though his arms were torn and bleeding. In that moment, the blonde guy realized he was done for. He trembled as Sung Gun broke his sword and used the tip of it. Ending the life of the blonde guy, he could only curse once before losing consciousness. At the same time, the challenge time was up, and in the end, the victors were those who maintained their teammates. However, there were still a few cold-blooded cases of victory. In the eyes of others, Sung Gun was indeed a bloodthirsty monster. The others maintained their teams, while there were still a few cold-blooded cases winning. In the eyes of others, Sung Gun was also a bloodthirsty monster. Sung Gun returned to the waiting room and reviewed his achievements, most of which he earned from killing. He also received skill points and other rewards. This time, the reward for level 6 was a random golden bow tie box. Sung Gun didn't expect much from his luck. When the box opened, a cute creature landed. However, it looked rather unfriendly towards Sung Gun. He lunged to grab it, but every time he got close, it would jump away. Sung Gun sped up and finally caught the little green blob. He laughed excitedly, but the green fluff opened its mouth and bit down hard on Sung Gun's hand, causing him to tear up in pain. It jumped back, waiting. Sung Gun put on a dangerous look, trying to scare the little creature into submission. He wanted to catch it, and though it looked adorable, its sharp teeth made him think twice. Sung Gun flipped upside down and delivered a powerful strike straight to its head. A second later, its body exploded into hundreds of pieces, revealing hidden items inside. A B-rank iron chain with a blessing effect of steel was among the items. This skill increased sword skills by 7% and absorbed 10% of physical damage. Sung Gun tried it on, but soon ran out of mana. Although the chain didn't require a cooldown, it needed mana to maintain its effect. A new announcement was made: the waiting time for the tower trial had been lifted. The community buzzed with chatter, but it didn't change much. What everyone was concerned about was, killers wouldn't be able to act when the next round was a solo fight. Sung Gun needed to be wary of dangerous teammates like that. First, he needed to train a new skill that wouldn't be disrupted by any other diverse skills. His soul had reached level D, enhancing his strength. It also reinforced his mana and created a defensive shield. To test the defensive skill, Sung Gun pulled out his sword, threw it up to the ceiling, and waited for it to fall back into his hands. As soon as the sword touched his hand, it was blocked by the souls, or rather absorbed the damage. Sung Gun was quite amazed by this type of defensive shield. Each time it activated, he would need a soul to take the hit, so he needed to keep some souls for defense. Next, he was curious about the trial rankings for level 6. He hadn't killed many people, so he dropped to rank 4. Although a bit disappointed, he only needed to be in the top 50. Feeling restless, Sung Gun decided to jump straight into the next trial. This trial required players to overcome 3 challenges in 40 minutes. To prove himself, Sung Gun was transported to a dark corridor which was so silent that he couldn't sense any presence. At the end of the corridor, a blue light flickered, and the teleportation gate brought Sung Gun to the first trial area. When he opened his eyes, the familiar sight of a desert appeared. Something was stirring deep beneath the sand. He realized the system was setting him up to go through 3 trials which he had overcome with strength. Now Sung Gun was confident he could easily defeat the sand golem. But he immediately felt apprehensive when he saw the unusually large sand golem. In his memory, the sand golem was only a third the size of this one. The golem swung its arm still covered in sand, then brought it down, creating pressure in the surrounding area. Sung Gun drew his sword and shield and charged at it. He jumped around, but still couldn't find the core of this golem. While he was examining it, it suddenly turned its neck 180 degrees towards him, startling Sung Gun. It swung its other arm, grabbing him like a mosquito. Its solid stone hand crushed the human inside, but its arm shattered under Sung Gun's sword strike. He could easily slice through it. Was this the only way to win? Sung Gun continued to jump through the layers of sand of the golem. Although everything had been torn into pieces, the next moment it restored itself as before. The golem was now even angrier. This seemed to boost its power. A punch from the golem aimed down at the ground, and Sung Gun noticed something strange, so he quickly ran away. He had to dodge the attack while keeping as far away as possible. The pressure the golem created on the ground was immense, but he couldn't run fast enough as everything around him sank. Both Sung Gun and the golem were buried in the sand. He looked at it, irritated. Now he was feeling a bit angry. Sung Gun decided to keep fighting, using the 3 slashes he had just learned. He sliced off the golem's parts, and before it could recover, he continued to slash. He felt grateful to the invader for giving him combat experience. The golem recovers to the point where Sung Gun strikes. No matter how battered its body gets, it won't stop. After 10 minutes, he was sweating in his outfit while fighting in the scorching desert. Who wouldn't be sweating? But he noticed that the little bear had become cuter over time. The little bear blushed, surprised that it was being called cute. The amount of sand that made up its body was considered a resource, but it couldn't take any from the sand around it. That's why the little bear looked at Sung Gun with a sly expression, asking, "Hey, golem, want to lose some weight with me?" So the two of them started to diligently exercise. Sung Gun, passionate about his job, helped the golem lose 10 pounds in just a few minutes, revealing its core behind its back. But as the golem slimmed down, it also moved faster, easily attacking Sung Gun at close range. With only 40 minutes for the trial, Sung Gun couldn't keep playing cat and mouse here forever. He directly destroyed the core behind the golem, marking the end of the first trial. He proved himself by overcoming his fear. As soon as he defeated the golem, the system's portal opened again, and Sung Gun hurriedly extracted the golem's soul. But it was too late. Sung Gun cursed the system for not letting him absorb anything, and he was taken to the second trial in the village of Off, which was the story after he defeated the village chief. The hunters returned to a scene of devastation, filled with rage as they saw the village chief's body before them. They howled in fury and charged at the culprit Sung Gun. He didn't hesitate either, and rushed to confront them. All were eliminated except for the leader of the hunters. Sung Gun looked at the grieving leader and said, "It hurts, doesn't it, watching your family die like this?" The leader was even more enraged, gathering all its strength to strike at Sung Gun, but before the punch could land, the leader's head was severed and Sung Gun immediately extracted the souls. Just before the system dragged him away. Luckily this time he managed to absorb a bit of the hunter's soul. The scene changed and he returned to the ocean of the 6th floor. He thought the system would let him retry in order starting from 1, 2, 3, just like the previous 2 times on the 1st and 2nd floors. But reflecting on it, the tower had him fighting the hunters, while the challenge was called Wisdom, and he began to doubt the logic of this tower. First, Sung Gun needed to recover some health after the fierce battle, but there was nothing in his inventory. Looking around, he was all alone, thinking the tower was a bit polluted. It should be fine, right? Just then, the water level behind Sung Gun suddenly rose and all the stones on the water's surface flew up. He thought to himself, I just threw a tiny bottle and now the ocean is going wild. Wild to this extent. Sung Gun immediately ran to find the red brick he had acquired on the 6th floor. Of course, he couldn't touch the seawater if he didn't want to lose stats. Sung Gun moved faster. Confident he thought he would definitely win, but the stone beneath his feet unexpectedly flew up, soaking him completely. He swore that the tower truly had no logic at all. Even the stones were flying randomly. Gritting his teeth, he accelerated and dashed down onto the stones that were thrown up, spotting the checkpoint he needed to conquer in an instant. With 3 minutes left, he thought he would finish it. But the whirlpool started chasing Sung Gun with water spouts reaching up and targeting him instead of tossing the stones anymore. Sung Gun weaved and dodged the water spouts. He was almost at the checkpoint, but from behind a powerful water spout slammed into his back, sending him flying as his body endured immense pressure from the whirlpool. It seemed like the story was ending just like a romance between you and your crush, but the blessing effect of steel activated and the absorbed souls mitigated the physical damage for Sung Gun. The hunter's souls he had just absorbed were now used as shields for Sung Gun. Otherwise, his body would have been destroyed by that whirlpool. Time was running out, and he continued racing toward the red brick. In the midst of misfortune came misfortune. Using the steel chain drained Sung Gun's mana, and the acceleration effect was about to end. Time was running out. He continued to rush towards the red tile. In misfortune, there was also misfortune. Using a steel chain drained Sung Gun's mana, and the instant acceleration effect was about to end. Sung Gun pulled out a soul of a hunter, absorbing a bit of power that had been restored. Just one more stone and he would reach the rescue point, but the tower seemed to enjoy teasing him. The stone flew up due to a massive water column acting like a wall in front of Sung Gun, while aggressive whirlpools were closing in behind him. At this point, he had no choice but to take a risk. He decided to dive through the water column to reach the rescue point, but the whirlpools chased after him, destroying the stone and sending Sung Gun flying high. The hunter's soul was also obliterated. Sung Gun flipped in the air. Then he fell freely onto the red tile. A loud noise echoed, bringing along defensive souls for Sung Gun. He lay flat amidst the rubble, and in front of him the whirlpools had stopped their pursuit. They weakened and turned into a stream of water pouring over Sung Gun. He silently cursed this ridiculous trial. In the end, he still had to deal with the water that annoyed him. Sung Gun returned to the waiting room for the trial, feeling like he had almost failed this time. He wondered what horrors awaited him on the 8th floor. Upon entering, a series of new functions were unlocked, but what he cared about most was the aura. The trial tower offered 3 auras along with a warning to be careful. Sung Gun skimmed through the descriptions of the aura system, recommending the jeweler aura for him. However, the hanger aura wasn't bad either. The last one was definitely the worst. Ignoring the last one, Sung Gun chose the jeweler aura, which allowed him to select one of 3 abilities: summoning souls, enhancing swordsmanship, and magic threefold. At the same time, he could create items and skills with the soul technique. Sung Gun decided to choose the soul summoner along with a unique power that combined skills. Sung Gun could combine 2 skills to create an incredibly powerful new skill. He decided to pick the 2 weakest skills that were not closely related to each other for the combination. The result left him in awe. Sung Gun had received a powerful D-rank skill. Although it had some limitations, the combination of 2 S-rank skills resulted in a D-rank. This surprised him, and the main character was excited to try again. However, his knowledge of archery and fire resistance only produced an E-rank skill according to Sung Gun's reasoning. It seemed that the more compatible the 2 skills were, the higher the level they produced. Exhausted, he lay back on the bed, never expecting that he would one day have his own aura. The feeling of standing above others was strange, making him reflect on life. Suddenly, he remembered there was another reward. Sung Gun jumped up to check the Elegant as the Wind A-rank skill, which increased speed by 10%. The movement effect stacked 7 times, but the cooldown time was 1 day. When stacked 7 times, Sung Gun would gain a 70% speed boost, moving even faster than the Flash. What he liked most was that it didn't cost mana like that necklace. As a speed enthusiast, the main character couldn't pass up these shiny suede-like speed shoes. Browsing through Shopee, he found only cheap and expensive skills, but Sung Gun still decided to buy the mana sensing skills simply because he had the money. Remembering the last time he struggled with Kim Ji-hyun using something that shared pain, he thought if he could sense mana, he could prepare for situations like that. As soon as he activated mana, sensing it was engraved into his body, he felt all the mana distributed and enhanced at once, making him feel like his whole body was on fire. After completing it, he felt like he was in a different position, a leap forward compared to himself 30 seconds ago. Sung Gun felt as light as a feather and lifted his leg to stomp hard on the floor. Under his feet, the ground shattered into pieces, not only buffing his mana, but also slightly increasing his stamina. After equipping all the skills, Sung Gun took a deep breath before making a decision. The 8th floor wouldn't be easy to deal with. He thought he would return to Earth to relax for a while. Somewhere on Earth, a young man holding an iPhone 14 Pro Max nervously bit his nails, worried about not being able to recruit any hunters. A square-headed fat guy approached, mocking him while demanding he hand over his entry pass. He had recruited all the hunters there. Isolating the young man because he was just an E-rank hunter, the boy trembled with anger at their contemptuous remarks. "Do you still have spots left?" A strange voice rang out, piquing everyone's curiosity. Sung Gun stepped forward, holding up his driver's license. A strange voice echoed, making everyone curious. Sung Gun stepped forward, holding up his driver's license. A C-rank hunter license was required to join the team. No need to say the E-rank hunter accepted immediately, while the fat guy grabbed Sung Gun's shoulder, confused. "Can't you see everyone has been waiting? Are you blind?" Sung Gun smirked, knowing everything except for one thing. He used his bloodthirsty gaze to warn the fat guy to let go of him immediately as his eyes turned red like blood. This made the fat guy instinctively pull back his hand. The underlings outside didn't understand why their boss was being overpowered by Sung Gun, but luckily he didn't lose face because of it. He coughed lightly and made an excuse to slip away. Before Sung Gun could question him again, Lee Jong-won was pulling his hair out, having just joined, and already Sung Gun had clashed with that fat guy. But Sung Gun didn't care. He just wanted to head straight into the dungeon. After all, with Lee Jong-won's reputation, no one else would join. Treo-won looked confused, pointing. "Am I looking at you, or are you looking at someone else?" A date with a monster, just the two of them. Lee Treo-won was already in the dungeon, feeling the atmosphere here was different from outside. Sung Gun wasn't as excited. He was confident he could handle a D-rank dungeon, while Treo-won realized it was his first time doing this. He immediately explained to Sung Gun that theoretically, higher-ranked hunters usually had a higher death rate than E-rank hunters who should know their place and stay behind, while C-rank hunters were confident and victorious, and the outcome was what they had to face. Cheon-won was worried because their team didn't even have a healer, and Sung Gun's attitude was textbook. To ensure safety, Cheon-won would lead the team. Sung Gun wanted to take the lead but agreed anyway. After all, he had never been in a dungeon before, and he wanted to see how experienced hunters fought, to see how they handled things. Very quickly, the opportunity came when they encountered the Lizard Man. Jo-won rambled off a few lines he memorized from the textbook, then followed the plan to attract its attention. Sung Gun would take the chance to attack. That was the plan, but when it started, Jo-won just stood there, waving his stick from afar, leaving the Lizard Man confused. Sung-won thought he was good at talking and acting. But he had only been on Earth for 3 days, so he couldn't just stand there watching him dance with that lizard. So Sung Gun activated his acceleration and charged straight at it, easily finishing off the mutated lizard with 3 slashes. For now, he was temporarily distracted, and Sung Gun suggested leading the team. If they let Cho Gun dance, they wouldn't finish until tomorrow. Since Sung Gun led the team, every creature they encountered, he killed. If we let Cho Gun dance, we won't be done by tomorrow. Ever since Sung Gun led the team, every time he encounters a creature, he kills it. Cheon Gun witnessed what he felt was a massacre of lizards, no longer an exploration of the dungeon. Sung Gun dealt with it and pulled out the mana core of the lizard god. Habitually, he tossed the core into his already full backpack. While the two were busy discussing, a lizard suddenly lunged out from behind Sung Gun, who shook his head to clear away the dust. To his surprise, he managed to dodge its tongue. After that, Sung Gun used his multifunctional shield to send the lizard back to its lizard king. He pretended to yawn. Then he absorbed the souls of the lizards. After all, he didn't want his unique skill to be discovered in such a dull way. However, the D-rank monsters on Earth only increased his power by 0.7%. Sung Gun felt a bit disappointed. The two entered the boss room, and Cheon Gun couldn't help but feel excited even though he was just there to carry items. The Lizard King was already sitting there waiting for Sung Gun to take it down. Cheon Gun felt uneasy wanting to discuss a plan, but with Sung Gun's main character, Aura, charging in, was bound to win. What was the point of a plan, the Lizard King charged, but its speed was surprisingly fast for its massive size, catching Sung Gun off guard. However, he had his own tricks. Sung Gun accelerated and moved behind the Lizard King, but he forgot that it had a tail twice the length of his body. Sung Gun was struck by its tail like a bullwhip, the weight sending him flying. Yongwon panicked, clutching his head and calling out his name in the night, thinking he was done for, but he had used the soul to take the hit instead. The bloodthirsty feeling surged again before such a formidable opponent. Yongwon's heart raced even more than when he touched Krat's hand. Sung Gun glanced at the Lizard King's throne. The stone throne of the Lizard King was cracked, and he had a bad feeling about this. Sure enough, the Lizard King got angry and let out a deafening roar, activating a slow movement skill that felt like chains were tightly binding Sung Gun's limbs. This was the moment for him to unleash his new powerful skill. Luckily, he had greater magic than the Lizard King, so all its effects were nullified against him, leaving the Lizard King wide-eyed in shock. He instinctively broke out in a sweat because he had already used his ultimate move, and from the other side, Yongwon let out a long groan. He didn't have a skill like Sungwon, so now he was tightly bound by several chains. He trembled, calling out for Sungwon, but this caught the Lizard King's attention, and it immediately charged toward Yongwon, wanting to finish him off. Sungwon tried to keep up, but the distance was too great. At that moment, Sung Gun remembered he had a few minions waiting to be summoned. He quickly called forth some skeletons wrapped in scraps of cloth to shield Chuan. They had no endurance and were immediately shattered by the Lizard King's attack, but that was enough time for Sung Gun to elegantly dash in like the wind and take down the Lizard King. The boss was defeated, its soul belonging to Sung Gun, and he also received its skill, the Spirit Eye. Outside the gate, a manager was yawning, waiting impatiently. Normally, after the Pioneer hunting team left the gate, the assault team of the association would enter to defeat the boss, but he was only assigned to follow the Pioneer team. If only he had been assigned to the assault team to take down the boss. He would have received countless rewards, but that was just a dream. Unless the team had an A-rank hunter, they might sweep through once. But just then, Sung Gun's team stepped out, and seeing only the two of them, they guessed this team had only cleared half of the dungeon. They had just come out, but a second later the door turned gray, meaning the dungeon boss had been defeated. The manager hurriedly ran with all his might to the team's location. Sung Gun wanted to confirm the truth. He introduced himself as the team leader of the gate management for the Shin Hunter Association Ujin Cho-won, guessing he was there to buy ownership of the gate. But that decision had to be made by Sung Gun since he had single-handedly cleared the dungeon. Ujin was astonished, sure that Sung Gun was an A-rank hunter, but Sung Gun didn't care about ranks. He was only interested in what price they would offer him. Ujin pondered and then quoted a figure of 1.2 billion while at the same time Hyeon was overwhelmed with a pile of documents. After returning from the trial tower, she had become the team leader of the management team for the challengers assigned by her superiors. In short, she needed to find exceptional hunters from the trial tower to create breakthroughs for the hunting community. But it wasn't easy, as the people she found were all of varying difficulty levels in the tower. Thinking of this, Hyeon remembered Sung Gun, who had the ability to clear the 4th floor of the tower by himself. She regretted not making a proposal to him back then. But just then, Sung Gun sent a message to meet up. No need to say Hyeon felt like she had hit the jackpot. Sung Gun was waiting in a cafe, and Hyeon rushed in, her urgency evident. She immediately knew how much she wanted to see him. As soon as she greeted him, she scolded him for not replying to her messages. Sung Gun apologized and explained that in his mind there were only 2 words, hunter. He didn't think about love at all. The message was about business. Sung Gun contacted her to ask for an introduction to a guild, but he wanted that guild to grant him 3 privileges. 1 was to refuse summons, 2 was not to interfere with his activities in the tower, and 3 was to use the dungeon at any time. After finishing his request, the atmosphere immediately froze. He felt that his demands seemed quite unreasonable, and indeed they were. Hyeon asserted that no guild would meet his conditions. Sung Gun felt a bit disappointed, but the next moment, Hyeon took his hand and made a request. That was for Sung Gun to join her silver guild, which could meet his needs, but he had to prove his abilities by clearing a C-rank dungeon by himself. That's why he was now lying on the roof of the car, lost in thought. That's why he was now lying on top of the car, taking a break from his thoughts.